Greetings and salutations one and all. Welcome to the night shift. It's community and finance night, and I'm so happy to be back. Yeah, it was on a little bit of a break, and it's just a little bit of a break that we need sometimes. Kicking it tonight, kicking it off tonight with the sound of China Nicole.
Time for us to make peace and stop the fighting.
The track is called Let It Be for Justice.
One unity, got to break the bondage. No more borders around me, no more mental slavery. But Marley said it best, stand together and feel alright. But if we fight, let it be for justice. And if we war, let it be for justice. At all costs, let it be for justice. Do what is right, let it be for justice. Let it be for justice. Let it be for justice. No matter what it costs, let it be for justice. Let it be for justice. Inequity, disparities, and violence, oppression, racism. No, I won't be silent. No more barriers for we. We will thrive, prosperity. Marcus Garvey said it best. None but ourselves can free your minds. But if we fight, and if we war, let it be for justice. At all costs, let it be for justice. Do what is right, let it be for justice. Let it be for justice. Let it be for justice. No matter what it costs, let it be for justice. 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 No matter what it costs, let it be for justice. Let it be for justice. We the people are from royalty. Royalty. I wish so many of us can see. Keep the culture, be united, stop the violence. Put the power in ourselves, create the franchise. In the news last week, another bomb overseas. I'm so sick of these murders in the streets.
I want to welcome each and every one of you to the broadcast. I want to say big ups to each and every one locked in right now. Those on the night shift with DJ Kevin Stew on TuneIn Radio. Big ups to those hailing from across the pond, One Harmony Radio. Top of the morning to you guys in the UK. Big ups to those in New York. Locked in on Island Worldwide, exhibiting the power of music.
Let it be for justice.
Big ups to my friends on NIE Radio over there in New Jersey.
No matter what it costs, let it be for justice. Let it be for justice.
Much love to those in Texas.
Stop the violence.
Those locked in on
And ourselves create the franchise. In the news,
WGLRO, home of the Donny Walker Morning Show, taking you from the sheets to the streets on the People Station. Big ups to those on Oliwap Radio, Dusic Media Groups. Much love to you. Those on the Foundation Radio Network, ClintonLindsay.com. Much love, much love. I want to say big ups to those who are locked in right here at the home of the night shift to DJ Kevin Stew, kevinstew.com, where you're encouraged to have acceptance through enlightenment.
Of us.
Welcome. So glad to have you. Couldn't do it without you.
Stop the violence.
And you have my word, I wouldn't even try.
Franchise. In the news last week, another bomb overseas. I'm so sick of these murders in the streets. Ooh, why But if we fight, let it be for justice. And if we war, let it be for justice. At all costs, let it be for justice. Do what is right, let it be for justice. Let it be for justice. Let let it be for justice. No matter what it costs, let it be for justice. 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 No matter what it costs, let it be for justice. Let it be for justice. What I let it be for justice. What I let it be for justice. Let it be for justice. What I let it be for justice.
The sound. Oh, welcome to the Stew Potters. Welcome to those who are locked in. Listen, for those of you who are new, those of you who are locked in on Facebook Live, welcome to those on Facebook Live. Remember, this is only temporary, so use a link that is pinned in the comment section. Come on over to kevinstew.com. Because this is where everything is going to be happening. Welcome to those who have jumped into the stew pot. For those of you wondering what the stew pot is, it is what others call a chat room, but because we're fancy over here on kevinstew.com, this is the stew pot. It's where we keep things interactive and bubbling. So come on in, add some spice to the pot. Your comments are welcomed. This is where we are encouraged to have acceptance through enlightenment. It's all about growth, information, knowledge, and we expect to leave here a little bit better than we came. So those of you who are new, welcome. Glad to have you. Couldn't do it without you. Of course, I wouldn't even try. So you can jump into the stew pot, remain anonymous if you wish. You can put your name if you wish. That is fine. All comments are welcome, like I said. And of course, you can be a part of this broadcast live by calling in 773-789-STEW, 773-789-7839. Get that? Cool. You can text also. You can... Oh, much love, Paris. Much love to you, bro. You can call, you can text, you can WhatsApp, you can Telegram, but just call tonight. And if you want to text something, go to kevinstew.com and put it in the stew pot. All right? We want to keep things all in one place tonight. All right. Much love. On the line with me, I have two individuals, one of which most of you have heard quite often on or relatively often on the night shift to DJ Kevin Stew. No stranger to the broadcast, Mr. David Fisher. Say good night, David.
Good night, and welcome to the evening.
And a lady who has been with us from 2019 and has still hung around with us, and is quite a delight whenever I get to chat with her. Miss Heather Campbell Stobbs. Welcome, Heather.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it is always a pleasure.
Heather, just so that you know, it's all you tonight because you were there.
Well, and I gotta say, so there were several things that if you've been following Rodney Reed's case with the murder of Stacey Stites,
yes,
and you know the kind of stuff that has gone on, there were several times today where I think we felt a little bit of vindication because there were times actually when, and I'll get to a little bit later, but there were times when Lisa Tanner was cross-examining the medical examiner that was there and would try to kind of paint him into a corner, and he did not go for it. And so it was just kind of nice to hear, do you know what I mean? Like to hear her ask the question and the person actually say things like, that's not within the purview of a medical examiner. You're asking me questions that I really don't, that doesn't have to do with my expertise and why I'm here. And so, like she kept working on it, and but he really did hold his ground very well. So I was impressed with his ability to communicate his opinions and stuff that he had come up with as he had consulted on the case. And his testimony went much smoother than when Dr. Michael Bodden was there in 2017. I think a lot of it really had to do with the skill of the attorney from the Innocence Project and how prepared she was. She did a phenomenal job with her direct examination of him. So,
is this Michelle Davis? Oh, I'm sorry to step in.
Oh.
No, that's okay. I never did get her name. I even asked some of the people who were around me if they had caught what her name was, and they hadn't. And so there were two different Innocence Project female attorneys that did direct me today.
Okay,
And,
those are I'm sorry, Heather. Those were the
ahead.
professors from the Innocence Project. Let me pull up my sheet here. Then that's likely was Jane Poocher and Vanessa Potkin.
Okay, I will figure out tomorrow. I'll ask one of them as they're coming in.
Well, I think
like
they'll introduce themselves.
this week.
If you listen in the beginning when they start to question a new witness, they'll introduce themselves as my name is such and such. I'm an attorney for the defense.
So, and I will say that one of the issues that we were having today was there was some tech issues.
Oh,
so
okay.
like when they would walk up to where the court reporter was, and because they would kind of walk towards her to say what the name was, we couldn't hear them. Even the sound, and I had actually jotted a note because the sound when Dr. Baker was testifying, his microphone really wasn't on. And finally somebody said, like, I think it was on Rodney's team, they were like, we're having a hard time hearing him. And Judge Langley commented, he said, I understand that we're having some technical difficulties. They're working on them, but I've had to turn my hearing aids up all the way. So,
Oh, wow.
I mean, he even was having some difficulty. But I wasn't sure. I was trying to look and see if he really had hearing aids or if he was just, like, saying that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
As,
So, wait,
um,
before you go much further,
ahead.
Heather,
Uh-huh.
for those who are listening in and wondering, who is Heather Stobbs? Hey, Henderson, welcome, bro. I haven't spoken to you in a minute. We need to get in touch. For those wondering who Heather Stobbs is, could you just quickly say who you are especially in relation to this case?
Yes. So, Stacey Stites is my cousin, and she's about 10 years younger than I am. We grew up very, like house-wise, we grew up really close to each other, and spent a lot of time going back and forth. And hang on just a second.
Sure.
Sorry, I didn't let my family know that I was doing this, and I really probably should have put my phone on Do Not Disturb, because I keep hearing the beeping, and so I'm trying to decline their calls.
Okay.
But Stacey and I are cousins. Her mom and my dad are siblings.
Right. Okay, cool. And
Yep.
and how do you feel, just so that people have an idea from the get-go, how do you feel about Rodney being the person responsible for your cousin's death?
I do not think that is true. I believe that Jimmy Fennell murdered my cousin, like before midnight in the apartment. I don't believe that she made it out of Giddings alive.
Okay.
And so I don't think that Rodney had anything to do with her death at all.
Okay, I just wanted to so people got that understanding early out because they might be wondering, wait,
Yes,
why is she saying things the way she is saying it, and she is the cousin of the victim? So
exactly.
just to
Yeah,
get
I
that clear.
understand. I
So
didn't even think about doing that as I started.
not a problem, not a problem at all. There are lots of first timers who are tuning in tonight also. So welcome to the night shift. Don't be strangers. Feel free to come back anytime. On the call in line, I have someone calling in on the call in line. Are you there? Are you hearing us?
Oh,
Hello.
hello?
Okay, so you're there. You're hearing us. Cool. Oh,
Oh, I didn't know I was on.
oh yeah, you're very much on.
Yeah. No, I'm just following the case. Hey, Heather, how you doing?
Hey,
This is
So
Josie.
how are
This is
you?
Josie. Yeah, I talk to you all the time. Yeah, but I was following. Say what?
so Josie, I happens to be one of the very first advocates that I have met relating to the Rodney Reed case, outside of David Fisher and Heather Stobbs and Joy Monfort, who I'm surprised isn't with us tonight. But Josie, Nosy, and Colleen have been feeding me information. David has been feeding me information. I have been searching around, and all of these individuals have given me various angles to look at this Reed case, this Reed Stites case, and it's like as plain as day to me, and it's kind of crazy that there are people that are out there that are saying, Reed is guilty, Reed is this rapist, Reed is this murderer. I don't get it. I really don't. And I guess probably because I have seen a lot of the evidence that David has over the last 20 years. David has dug and dug and dug and brought to the fore. And I have presented on this broadcast quite a bit of that information that David Fisher has put together. So thank you again for that, David, and all the work that you
My
have put
pleasure.
in. So,
Oh yeah, I'm the one that usually handles the guilters.
right.
I usually make them block me. I'm the one that came
The
up with
hammer.
the name Lisa
The
O'Lion.
hammer.
So
Right. So,
I'm the
David,
one that came up with the name Lisa O'Lion, and so I have no chill whatsoever. I'm the no ifs to give. You know how I am.
right. So, Heather,
Yes.
back to the courtroom. So it was refreshing for you to get that bit of feedback or to hear someone respond to Lisa Tanner this way, especially
Yes.
as it relates to the medical examiner's information.
Hmm.
Now, I can tell you, some of us were quite surprised that Andrew Baker was first up.
Yeah. I thought that
Oh
they
my
would lay
goodness.
more of a foundation, but they just jumped right in.
Wow.
And if I may
Yeah.
step in here,
Yeah, sure, Dave.
a lot of the listeners don't know. It's a name. The medical examiner's name was Andrew Baker. Well, let me tell you a little bit more about Andrew Baker, and I think you'll then see who he really is.
Hmm.
Andrew Baker is the medical examiner from Minneapolis, Minnesota, who did the autopsy on George Floyd.
Right.
Yep.
So that somewhat
I
speaks
had to
volumes.
slap my head for that for the defense on that part. I'm like, really?
Yeah. I was kind of questioning that myself. But he seemed to have come through a bit. So
Yes.
I'm gonna leave it right there for now. We have spoken at length about the George Floyd case.
Right.
David and I.
We just needed to know in context
Yes.
why the defense chose him. They chose somebody who was, well, actually, they chose him 2 months before George Floyd's death. So Andrew Baker has some affiliation with the Innocence Project previous to George Floyd.
Mm. Yeah. So I guess that is the connection, and where that is concerned, I'm just gonna say, boy.
Yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with the Reed case right now. It's
Yeah.
just some background.
Right.
Oh, can I jump in and say something that I saw something that Lisa Tanner said? So she
Sure.
said, they said that she said that Carol Stites was the last person to see Stacey alive. But didn't Carol Stites say that that Stacey was running up the stairs with Jimmy? So how is she the one that saw Stacey alive, the last one to see
Right.
Stacey alive? I don't
Exactly. Jimmy
understand it.
Fennell was the last one to see Stacey alive.
And
Yeah.
so here we have Heather, who
So
was
Lisa lied again, basically.
so I don't know if it's a thing with Lisa's, but Lisa Tanner really put it
Oh,
out there.
don't get me started on Lisa online. She already blocked me on all my social networks except for YouTube. So
So I don't know if she's tuned in tonight. Lisa, if you are tuned in, 773-789-STEW, you can always call us, I'll let you speak.
oh, can I say something that she said? She said rape kits aren't evidence.
I'm sorry?
Literally. She said rape kits aren't evidence,
I
aren't physical evidence.
was
Well, I
hoping
guess
that.
the rape kit before it's used is probably not evidence of anything, but after it's used, it is.
Right.
Oh my gosh. I took a screenshot of that. I was like, she said some of the dumb, and she also said that Stacey's autopsy was hearsay. I got that screenshot too.
So, this gives a little bit of other insight. For those who are on social media platforms, you'll hear some of these names pop up from time to time. Lisa O'Brien, I don't know if she
lying.
does
That's what I call it.
a podcast or whatever it is that she does. She had invited David Fisher for a debate a few months back, and that didn't happen. So, Heather, CC says, I wanted to talk to you on Saturday afternoon, but did not want to overwhelm you. I just wanted to say I feel that I feel that is really huge of you to stand up to find justice for Stacey and Rodney. And that is a sentiment, CC, that I had expressed when I first met Heather. Because I found it interesting that a member of the victim's family is saying that the accused didn't do it. I don't believe the accused did it. Now, not to say that she didn't believe that he did at first. Right, Heather?
Right. Yeah, exactly. I did when they said that there was DNA and that his defense was that they were having a secret relationship. Honestly, I just kind of like rolled my eyes and said, yeah, whatever. Of course they were having a secret relationship. That's like what all rapists would say. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
To me, that wasn't a stretch that he was saying that.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I started looking more closely into it, and actually the way that I got, I started researching about it and reading some stuff. And I was reading some different articles and then reading the comments. And there was an article where I could tell, like, it was my aunt. And I could tell just from, like, the pattern and all that kind of stuff and the things that she was saying. And, there were, like, different ways that she would type things that I knew that it was really her. And someone actually said, I don't believe that this is really Stacey's mother.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew it was because I could tell by how she had typed. And a person made a comment, and it was like, yes, I know that that's Stacey's mother. I've talked to her several times, blah, 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 blah. So I click on the name of the person. You know how you can contact them sometimes. And lo and behold, it's David Fisher. And so I say, I'm Stacey's cousin. Yes, I know that is, that's my aunt that is making those comments. And you said that you have talked to her. and I'd really like to talk to you because I have some serious doubts about, Rodney Reed's guilt. And that was how that's how my communication with David Fisher started. Way
Okay.
back in I think '09 or something like that. But yeah, at the very beginning, I did think that Rodney was guilty, and until I started reading some stuff and doing research on my own. And one of the things that was really interesting today, I thought, but you've got to remember that I'm not in the courtroom kind of person. I
Right.
mean, I have to really think about when the judge says sustained or overruled. I have to really be like, okay, wait, okay, that's what this means. Do you know what I mean?
Right,
I have
right.
to process it. It doesn't come natural to me. And one thing that I thought was interesting was because I had always thought that if a person was testifying that they couldn't be in the courtroom at all. I didn't realize that I guess there's some exceptions to that. Like, for example, at the very beginning, Andrew McCrae said he had some things that he wanted to address. This was before his opening arguments.
Mhm.
And it was that he asked the judge he said, invoke the rule. And I put the rule in quotation marks. And it was basically because Lisa Tanner was being called to testify, and she was in the room, and the state had motioned to quash documents.
Mhm.
And they wanted Tanner to stay because she was such a vital part of their investigation and the
representing their
case,
case.
and right, and doing all that kind of stuff. So the judge actually said he overruled their motion on the documents because they wanted to quash them, and he had overruled that, but then he allowed her to stay. But then he also Stacey's sisters were allowed to stay if anybody had questions about that. One of her sisters was subpoenaed, and the other one's on the list but hasn't been subpoenaed. And they allowed them to stay because they're survivors of the victim.
Okay.
And then the one that they didn't allow to stay, David Board, was actually in the courtroom, and he was listening to all the stuff. And I believe it was Lisa Tanner when the judge said, "Is there anybody else in here?" And she turned around and pointed him out and said, "I think he is on the list to testify." So David Ford stood up and got sworn in, and then the judge, it was like he was kind of pausing, like he wasn't really sure what to do, and the judge told him that he had to leave the room and just communicate with Rodney's team how they were going to get in touch with him when he needed to come back.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I was just very I guess I was just surprised because I really didn't think that Lisa Tanner would be in there. And she did all of the cross-examination and stuff was
Yes.
done by her today. So
I
okay.
want to really quickly say, David Piercy, who is Josie, behave. David
Drop me.
Piercy, David Piercy, who is watching on Facebook Live or was watching on Facebook Live, commented and said everything Fisher, Josie, Nosy, and Stobbs fed you is
Tell
wrong.
Sandy to shut up. Don't
And
nobody
he's-
care what he got to say. Forget him. Don't read what he got to say. I don't want to hear what he got to say.
I want to
can
hear
say
what he
somebody-
has to
You
say.
know what? He blocked me on Facebook anyway.
And that's fine.
And he reported one of my posts and got me put in Facebook jail. So.
I want to hear what he has to say because,
I'm interested.
yeah.
I'm
Let him call
interested
in.
too because
Let him call in.
because
Tell him
Oh,
to
yeah.
call in and stop
I'm
being a
not
punk.
mistaken. If I'm not mistaken, he accused me of being like a liar and doing all this kind of stuff. And there is
That's what I'm
absolutely
saying.
nothing that I've lied about.
David Piercy says
and-
Fisher,
and
Fisher,
Piercy needs to talk about
Josie.
his little background with his stalking history.
Josie, behave.
Why he want to talk about Rodney?
He
I'm
goes.
the
He
last
said
person
he
you
said
wanna
it
talk.
3 times, and he posted a link to something, some document in a penalty phase transcript, 3 of them, and he says Fisher, Josie, Nosy, and Stobbs fed you everything that they fed you is wrong. So, Crystal, David Piercy, I don't know who he is. He commented quite a bit on my last broadcast with
He was
David.
going at it with Joy, right? He was going at it with Joy.
Yeah, he went at Joy Montfort. Heather just said that he called her a liar before and is doing it
I
again.
believe so.
So David, please, 773-789-STEW. The number is easy. 773-789-7839.
He ain't gonna call him. He a punk. He got me blocked.
Go ahead, call and tell us what they're lying about. Because clearly you were there and you are related to either the victim or the accused. So share with us. And you did the research that David did over 20 years, that David Fisher did. So David Piercy, please call us and share with us. Let us know.
Apparently I'm Rodney's cousin or something, and I've never met him, and I've never been a bash dropper.
You know, I don't know. I don't know. Heather, so,
Yeah.
okay. How did you feel about Andrew Baker and what he was saying, based on the evidence that he was looking at with time of death, with the rape accusations? How did you feel about all that?
So, with Andrew Baker, the medical examiner, when he was talking about what he had seen, he said first that he began with the autopsy, works out to the testimony, and then he watched the video, like the video of when Stacey's body was found, and he doesn't look at like the work of the other experts or anything like that. He got information and testimony from Megan Clements, Karen Blakely, and Roberto Bayardo. And he just kind of went through it like all kind of blind, you know, like he didn't look at other sources and everything. He looked at just what that was. And so with the autopsy, he said that Bayardo's, what Bayardo said about the postmortem interval was incorrect. What they said about the sperm being deposited no more than 26 hours was incorrect. Timing of the bruises, which is what Karen Blakely had testified to, was incorrect. And the anal assault was incorrect. And so he said that when Bayardo did that 3 to 5 a.m. 2-hour window, that anytime someone gives that narrow of a time of death, it's a red flag because there's so many variables involved. Like, you really have to be careful about that. And then one of the things he said, and I didn't hear the third thing, and David might know what it is just from knowing what it is, but he said that there's like 3 things that have to do with time of death. It's rigor mortis.
Rigor mortis.
Rigor mortis.
Liver mortis.
That's the color, the bluing color.
What's the one that's how the body cools? Because that's the one I didn't understand.
Lividity, the blood and the lividity.
That's alger mortis.
Alger mortis. Okay.
Is the cooling of the body.
Gotcha. So I was trying to get what it was he said, but he was really good about defining terms as he went along. And if he didn't define the term, the Innocence Project attorney would ask him to. So that was like nice that he did that. And then he went through just like the what the standards are for how long it takes for rigor mortis to set in, and then like how it reaches a crescendo and then it stays for a while and then it begins to fade. And that he said that with the video that he had seen, that there's right after 6:17 p.m., there's a part where Stacey's arm's manipulated. And in his opinion, she's not in full rigor or even nearly full rigor. And so, like, the same thing happens with her head, like they move her head and it flops back. And he had a PowerPoint that he was using, and he showed something like, and I couldn't see it from where I was sitting, but he explained it. And he said, like, if a body is in full rigor, you can, like, they had some sawhorses and they placed the body. It was a dead body in full rigor, and it was on sawhorses, and it was like completely like
Yeah, you could put it
completely
on
frozen.
under her neck and under the person's ankles and neck, and they would
Yes,
be just stiff
Stay
as,
there.
like a board.
Right.
Stiff
like
as a board
stiff
all
as
the
a
way across.
board, truly. um, and so he talked about that, and he talked about, when he's doing an autopsy, if somebody is in full rigor, that, like a lot of times their head will be to one side, and they have to physically, and he said it takes for him, it takes a lot of strength and energy to pull someone's head and make it straight so that you can take an identifying picture of them. And he said that there at one point, like they move her head and it just kind of flops back. So he knows that by looking at that, you can tell, because like the rigor comes on the same way it dissipates, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So
Okay, now I got to step in here. See, this is the problem. This is a huge problem with throwing a medical examiner who doesn't do crime scene. Andrew Baker is an in-office medical examiner, meaning he doesn't see the body until it's been in the refrigerator. He doesn't go to the crime scenes. He doesn't do the investigations. Here's the deal.
apparently he has in the past, because that's one of the things that they talked about when they credentialed him.
Yeah, maybe a long time ago, but here's the problem.
Maybe.
Okay, there are two ways to break rigor. Only two. By force, that Andrew Baker was telling you,
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of force, you can break rigor. But you also bruise the body, tear, and if you're forcibly breaking rigor to stage a crime scene, it's obvious what you've done. The other is with heat. Now, if the body shows signs of being exposed to some extensive heat, then you can't use rigor as a time of death anymore.
Mm.
Because that's what the heat is supposed to do. It's to accelerate the breaking down of rigor.
Right.
Now,
He
Stacey's
talked
got...
about that. He
yeah,
talked about that
He
later.
did he? Okay, good, because if he didn't...
Mm-hmm.
Okay, go ahead. Then go ahead. I just need to make sure that, because I was getting a little PO'd.
No,
Yeah.
not specifically with Stacey, but he did go into, because he was talking about really specifically with ambient temperature, right?
Okay, yes.
And he was saying that because they got into this kind of back and forth, especially when Lisa Tanner was doing her cross with him, because she was insistent that because Karen Blakely wrote in her report that it was a warm day, like a very warm day. And he keeps saying, well, but it was 79 degrees. And Lisa Tanner's like, but have you ever lived in Texas? Do you know what the humidity?
79 is hotter in Texas than it is in Minnesota.
We
Right.
get triple-digit
Did
degrees.
you,
It wasn't triple digits, though.
Right.
Say that again?
We get triple-digit degrees in Texas, but it wasn't triple digits that day. They said it was 79
No,
to
it
80,
was
right?
79.
Right.
And a
So
cold
that's
front had
not,
come
that's
in.
not
The
even
cold front
close
had
to
come
being
in that
hot to
morning.
us. That is not even close to
yeah,
being
she
hot to
asked
us.
him that.
Wait,
She asked him that. And then the other thing that she said was, she asked about the humidity. Did he know what the humidity was? Because apparently it was around 80%.
No, it
And
was
that's
not.
when she-
No. It was
Right.
a cool front. I pulled up the stats for that day. That was one of the first things I did in 2001 when I started looking, is to establish what the temperature, humidity, had it rained, all of that. It was a drought. It had almost not rained any that whole spring. That's why everything's dead in that picture. There were no wildflowers in the whole damn county. Everything was dead. The only wildflowers that you could find would be those in a cemetery that are made out of a petroleum product.
Mm.
Nature didn't do wildflowers that year. Now, a cool front had come in that morning, so the humidity was very low, and the temperature was very low. It was there was a northeast wind. And when we have a northeast wind, you don't have humidity.
David Piercy, just so that you know, David, I don't know why David giving me conditions for wanting to call in. 773-789-STEW, David. Simple, just call. You can't send me documents now and ask me to review them and that be a condition for us to talk. Just call. If you have something to say, just
Dude,
call.
we already sent you documents days ago. What the hell is he talking about?
He
got
didn't
the
send
document.
me. He didn't send me documents. David Piercy is sending me documents on the.
We saw. I mean,
so,
you showed the documents already. So, like, what is he asking for documents for?
No. He's not asking for documents. He posted some documents on his comment on Facebook. By the way, I'll be saying sayonara to those on Facebook right now. Use a link. Come on over to kevinstew.com. Post your comments in the comment section in the stew pot. It's what we call a stew pot. Others call it a chat room. You can remain anonymous. You can put your name as some others have, and just call, David. Just call. All right. Giving me conditions.
Okay, so
I
I'm
had a
sorry.
question for Heather.
I got sidetracked.
Yes.
Heather, I had a
because
question for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder is the temperature of the weather the only thing that Lisa Tanner cross-examined Andrew Baker on?
Oh no. No.
Because I wanted to
not at
know
all.
what did she bring up to try to rebuttal his time of death and stuff.
Hold on, so I only got to type up some of my notes. I took pages of notes. So let me find.
Oh, go for it.
Let me find the part where she was cross-examining him. Yeah, he basically said, and not on cross, but on direct, he said that, like with the bruises that Karen Blakely talked about, you can tell how old a bruise is by its color. And he said that's not right.
Yeah, that's not
before
true.
1996, based on literature, like all this kind of stuff. He named all these different things. And then in his opinion, he said that she wasn't qualified, that she portrayed expertise when there was no way to, like when no way to be an expert exists. Like you can't really be an expert on
because
bruises.
a science doesn't exist in that
Right.
field.
Now, one thing that he said that I found very interesting is, and it was on direct, as he was talking about what he does in his position, he said that one of the issues is, I think he said he had 7 or 8 other people that work under him, because I guess he's the director or like
He's
the head guy
the
of that
chief medical
particular
examiner.
place.
Yeah.
Okay, so he said that they asked him what was Roberto Bayardo's time of death for the 3 to 5 a.m., give or take 1 to 2 hours, and they were like, "So what did he base that on?" And Dr. Baker goes, "Nothing. He based it on nothing."
Actually, that's not true. But that's not true.
He based it off of Jimmy Finnell's statement.
No. This is how Bayardo established time of death. Lisa Tanner asked him in the beginning of the testimony about how many hours can you do time of death, and he says, generally about 3 to 4. And then she goes, well, you can't do it 1 to 2 hours. And then about 8 questions later, she comes back and she says, so how close can you do time of death? She says, 1 to 2 hours. You see, Bayardo, you lead Bayardo. You tell him what you want, and then you come back and ask him again. He'll change his testimony, and he did.
Mm-hmm.
He went from 3 to 4 to 1 to 2 in the course of 2 pages.
Baker brought that up, how with the anal assault, that in the autopsy he says that it was abrasions. By the time he got to his testimony, he said it was lacerations. And then as they continued talking, like it got more and more severe, so that I think Lisa Tanner eventually said that it was tears and all this kind of stuff. And he actually had the reason why that happened. And just FYI, I opened Facebook and I looked at what David Piercy said here about he had criticisms of Bayardo, accusing him of misdiagnosing certain evidence of sexual assault.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's actually not what he did. He said the reason why, because Bayardo based the sexual assault also on the dilation. And Dr. Baker said, that is not dilation from a sexual assault. That is normal dilation that happens as the sphincter muscle relaxes.
Right
And so
now, I
there's
sent you
like
an email, Heather, where you're in trial, and I'll send it to Kevin's too. In 2005, Lisa Tanner was prosecuting a baby death case in Dallas-Fort Worth. Bayardo was the defense expert. The baby's anus was dilated, and Bayardo testified that that was evidence that the child had been anally assaulted multiple times. Tanner pulled out one of the medical books, opened it, put it in front of Bayardo, and made him read out of it. And then he goes, he didn't know that.
Mm.
Yep.
And that's in the Court of Appeals opinion in 2007. That whole exchange is there, where Bayardo had to admit that he didn't know that the anus naturally dilates after death, and it has nothing to do with sexual assault. This is in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
What effect does that have on his testimony in 1998?
Mm.
He's incompetent, but it doesn't stop there. Lisa Tanner then has some kind of conversation with him, and she goes on the Texas District and County Attorney Association weblog. This is a weblog where criminal district attorneys and county attorneys trade information back and forth with themselves online. You know, how to attack witnesses, this, that, and advice from each other. Well, I joined that blog to watch those little buttholes, put it mildly. And so Tanner says that if any other criminal district attorney sees Bayardo on the stand for the dark side, that means the defense, to give her a call, and she, especially if it has to do with sexual assault, and she will disclose a conversation that he and she had. Now, I want to tell you what, that is a Brady violation, or a Michael Morton violation. Under the Michael Morton Act, it's the Texas Penal Code 39.14, sections H and K. Tell you in H that all exculpable evidence has to be turned over, and K tells you that it has to be turned over if it's learned before trial, during trial, or after a conviction, if it tends to the innocent of the defendant or mitigation of the sentence or whatever. But after the trial, you have to turn it over too. So when in that article that was published by KXAN TV in Austin over a couple of days ago, where they, at that hearing, that pretrial hearing they had on July 6th, where the state turned over 2 more witness statements that they had, where people told the prosecution that they had seen Stacey and Rodney together at HEB, and the state withheld it all this time. Well, Ottaway, the state's prosecutor, told the judge that they have no duty to overturn that, to turn that over to the defense after the trial. Yeah, you do under the Michael Morton Act. You most certainly do.
So here it is. 726 is saying Fisher is wrong again. 726, the number to call, 773-789-STEW. 773-789-7839. Really easy.
So,
Well,
so
I
dry
just
pee
gave
is
you
going
the
to continue to
Texas
say somebody's
Code of
wrong
Criminal
without no
Procedure.
argument.
I'm sorry. Josie, what was that?
I said dry pee is going to continue to say somebody is wrong without any argument to rebuttal it.
Yeah.
Tell
No,
them to just shut
and
the hell
if
up
you
and-
know
and
me, I will
listen.
give you the document. I will give you the law. I'll give you the statute. You know, I'm not out there to, like some people are, that just want to say things that they believe might be true. I do the research. I mean, it's
And
it's
present the
important that
findings.
if I say something, that it be right.
Right.
Not that that I have to be right. No, that the fact has to be right. And it is all you have to do. Anybody can type in Texas Code of Criminal Procedure, Article 39.14, and then go to subparagraphs H and K and read them. And it tells you that you have to turn over evidence that is discovered, that the prosecution discovers before trial, during trial, or after a conviction if it tends to mitigate the guilt of the defendant or could mitigate time, years adjudicated to the sentence.
So he apparently 726 is saying Michael Morton Act is irrelevant because it was enacted after the trial.
No, it's not there. It's not irrelevant.
No, it's not.
Shut the hell up.
It's in. No, wait. Okay.
And then goes
So
on to say
Michael Morton
the act
came
is
in
not retroactive.
Michael Morton was in place when Lisa Tanner, tried this case with Bayardo and shut him down, and then blogged about it, twice 2 years later. And in these new witness statements that they've had in their possession after the Michael Morton Act went into effect, they come into play because Rodney's case is still under appeal. Now, if Rodney's case, all the appeals were dropped and everything was over, yeah, you might be right, but Rodney's case is not over. It's ongoing. And as an ongoing case, anything that happens, after the act has to be acted upon. So, but, there's so much more. Now, there's one thing I want to go back and ask Heather about, because this is a big deal. Did he ever address the burns on her body?
Not in a way that correlates with like a slow heat or anything like that.
Yeah, well, see, but he didn't speak about the burns in their relationship to heating the body and breaking the rigor, to oddly break the rigor. You see, that's the kind of stuff that makes me nuts. When the defense puts on a medical examiner that doesn't know and can't see the forest for the trees. Why in God's name would Stacey's body have these major burns? That
I don't know, because I didn't. Now I want to say it was Lisa Tanner that talked about like her being in direct sunlight, and there being almost third-degree burns on her face, I believe it was. But
wait a minute, because you have first-hand knowledge to this. The burns on Stacey's face were much more extensive than third-degree burns.
Yeah.
Because that side of her face had to be recreated in wax by the funeral home, didn't it?
Yes.
Hey, Kevin.
And see, that means that these are not burns, that the flesh has been cooked through the bone and the flesh fell off.
Mm.
And see, these are not burns. She has been cooked. They used a heating pad. You see, if you roll Stacey up in a ball to fit on the floorboard of the truck, where we know she was from the fluid discharges on the transmission hump, on that right side of the hump where Stacey's face is turned to the right.
Yes.
How would you get her she's rolled up in a ball. How would you get her out of rigor, when she's rolled up in a ball like that and stage the crime scene? You do it by force, like Dr. Baker said. That would take a lot of pulling and tearing and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
or you
Hey,
just
Kevin,
heat that part of the body as if. Just a second, Jesse.
1 second.
Just like if it had been 110-degree day, would accelerate the dissipation of rigor, but it wasn't. So rigor takes 9 to 12 hours to set up under normal temperature. 80 degrees is normal temperature.
Mhm.
And once
he did
set
talk
up,
about, I was just going to say, he did talk about that, like 80 degrees is not unreasonably hot. And when Tanner cross-examined him, she was like, well, they put a blanket over her. Are you aware of that? And he's like, yeah, I believe I saw that in the picture. She's like,
for about 15, 20 minutes.
She goes, were you aware it was a wool blanket? Because what she was saying was that when Karen Blakely removed the blanket, that's why, like the moisture and the heat, and then the wool blanket. And he said, there's not going to be a generation of heat like that because her body was not giving off any heat. A dead body doesn't give off heat. He's like, he said, when people cover up with a blanket, it warms you up because you're giving off heat and the blanket's holding it in. And he's like, but a dead body doesn't do that.
Right.
And so
that's all good, and he's shutting her down. But the key is, no medical examiner can see. That's all fine and dandy, and I have no problem with that testimony. But when he turns around and says, "Oh, when rigor dissipates over this many hours and this," and you notice how her neck is floppy and how her shoulders are, out of rigor, and her hips. Well, all of those areas are right in that burn zone.
Okay, I'm sorry, David.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Fisher. This comment here, wrong. Decomposition generates heat. How much heat is going to be generated from decomposition, and how long does it take for decomposition to start? 726.
Okay. There's no real generation of heat in decomposition.
Come on now.
The amount of heat, would be measured on have to be such a sensitive equipment, because 1 degree change in air temperature would affect the temperature of the body more than any heat generated by decomposition.
Right.
Because for one, the whole body doesn't go into decomposition all at once. It's certain areas. The stomach starts, the acid in the stomach starts, digesting itself. All the bacteria in the lungs, because they're being brought in and out once the breathing stops. Then the multiplication of the germs and the yeast and stuff in a person's lungs, act fast. The soft tissue in the nasal, the eyes, the access to the ears. But the large muscles, they may stay alive for hours upon hours upon hours before they start dying, because they don't need a lot of oxygen. And so you don't have heat generated of any measurable amount from decomposition. But again, the thing that is being overlooked, and this just makes me crazy to these expert medical examiners. You see, when I look at that, when I came into this case and I look at the body, and I see those odd burns, just incredibly odd burns, that aren't addressed, and they're intense burns. What caused them? Now, I first thought that she was laid across the hood, or an engine. How was she transported? Was that little pickup, did it have an under the bed tire mount where she could have been strapped up underneath the pickup to transport her so you couldn't be seen, so she couldn't be caught, and that her arm or her face was laid across the tailpipe in that 30-minute drive, which would cook you good.
Right.
And so I looked at all of this, but the thing, when I finally got a copy of the crime scene video, and played the video and saw the rigger being broke in the areas that the burns were, well, it was clear, oh crap, this heat source was deliberately applied to break the rigger in order to stage the body. And so roll her up in a ball. She's got 5 areas that are great, that what Bayardo calls third-degree burns. She's cooked. I mean, she is cooked.
Mm-hmm.
So she's got one on the left inside of her knee, underneath each breast, across the top of her left arm and wrist, back of the hand,
Mm-hmm.
and all on the left side of her face. So to fit her on the floorboard of that truck, Stacey's laid in the truck. She's tilted to the right. Her head's to the right, to the transmission hump. The bucket seat's pushed back. Her butt's up against the bucket seat. You roll her legs, because she's a rag doll. She's dead. She's limp as a noodle. She has, I mean, things that she could never do in life, she can do in death. You can roll those knees and put them right up against her face and fold her calves right down on top of her thighs, and then put those bags of clothes over her, and she'll go into rigor. Now, how to break that? She's rolled up in a tight little ball. Well, if you're going to use heat, how do you do it? Do you put her in a bathtub full of hot water? Because let me tell you, it's going to take hours of heat to begin to break the rigor. Or did you stuff a heating pad, one of those electric heating pads,
Mm-hmm.
not those digital ones we have today, but those hot, low, medium, and high?
Yeah.
Stuff that in between, her legs and across the top of her left hand that's laid across her stomach, because you can see the indentation in her body, and the legs are pulled up on top of her, and you see what they call thorn scratches. No, those are fingernail scratches. Look at them. They run in 4s, and they come parallel. This is somebody who doesn't clip their fingernails, is stuffing this heating pad in this tight, body laying against each other. So they're stuffing it up over the top of her left hand, touching her knee, over the top, under her breast, and stuffing a part between her knee and her face. And then they plug it in, and it cooked her. Now, it broke the rigor, so the heat building up in her abdominal area broke the rigor in her abdominal muscles and hips and allowed her hips to lay down. But her knees are still fairly locked.
Right.
It heated her neck and her shoulders, and so her arms float, but her elbows are still locked in rigor, as are her fingers.
Her fingers also.
Right, and see, Baker is saying, well, you can see how she's coming out of rigor, in her neck. No, that should have been a red flag to him. Rigor forms the same way it dissipates. Smallest muscles first go into rigor. That's why when you see on the Western and the heroine dies, the first thing the person does is close their eyes. That's not a loving, ritual. That's because if you don't close those eyelids right then and there, that body will stare at you for almost 48 hours. Because the first muscles that go into rigor are the smallest, and those are the eyelids.
Mm.
And then your fingers. And then your arms, your toes go in with your fingers. Biggest muscles last. Rigor dissipates exactly the same way. So starting at about 12 hours after you've gone into rigor, the rigor starts to dissipate. And the first things to go are the fingers and the eyelids. So if Stacey's coming out of rigor, her fingers should be out of rigor, and everything else should still be in rigor. But the only place the rigor is oddly broke is all close to the heat area, which tells you
which
that
is where the
heat
burn marks
source,
are.
Right, which tells you they used a heat source. Now, the trick on this is, in January of this year, 23 years after these records were taken, I obtained some records from the DPS crime lab.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of them, actually. And what I have here is notes from Texas Ranger Wardlow saying that Bayardo told him that the burns on Stacey's body were slow burns. Now, of course, this isn't in the autopsy report. It is in no record in the defense file. It's never been seen, and these records are not bait stamped.
You said you
Now,
got
what
them
he's
from
saying
where?
is-
Actually,
You said you got them
I
from where?
think
I got these from the DPS in January
Okay.
of this year, 2021.
so
Heather, you were saying?
I'm not sure. Well, I was just going to say, like in the stew pod here, if you look at where it says SP729 and it has like a little picture,
Yes.
it is actually someone has put on there. I don't know who that is, but it says they have it highlighted.
Mhm.
It was reported to Karen by Dr. Bayardo that dark discolorations under the victim's breast were consistent with burns having been caused by a slow burning process.
Mm-hmm.
We re-examined the truck for possible prints where the victim may have been laid over the hood of the vehicle and received the burns in that fashion.
And that's on where? On what kind of report?
I don't know where it came
It is
from.
after. Yeah, it's an excerpt from something. Someone.
It is.
Yeah,
copied.
send that to me because it looks like another lab report. You see, it says that now. Read that part about the burns on the hood of the vehicle again.
Yeah, we re-examined
So
the
it
truck for possible
There you go.
points of where the victim may have been laid over the hood of the vehicle and received the burns in that fashion.
And then it says, does it say they checked the hood and then on the engine?
No, it says during the course
That's
of investigating the body,
another.
Karen
Yeah, I
collected.
have two.
Okay, so I guess this was where, possibly where, it was reported to Karen by Dr. Bayardo that the dark discolorations on the victim's breast. So this was
And
Bayardo's
this is a
report.
this is a big long written paragraph.
Yes.
Yeah, but this is just
Okay.
an excerpt
It's
of
like-
it, from it.
Right. So you see, I got two reports in January. One is them checking under and on the hood of Fennell's truck
Mhm.
and on his engine for marks that Stacey was laid across the engine or the hood, because Bayardo told Blakely and Wardlow that the burns were caused, that these were slow burns. Now that means slow burns means low temperature, long duration.
Mhm.
That's a heating pad. Low temperature, long duration. But the thing of it is, it's not in the autopsy report.
Right.
It's in no other report that's bait stamped. These are reports that I got out just this year in January. One is for David Lawhon's truck, and one is for Fennell's truck. But the interesting part of the Fennell's truck is that I also have records that Will Young saying that he released the pickup on the afternoon of April 25th, 1996. Bayardo told in his statement to the sheriff detective when he first met with him that he had the truck picked up from the DPS this day, April 29th, 96. My records show the truck was sold to Gold Chevrolet by Jimmy Fennell, signing it his little self, Jimmy Fennell Jr.,
Mm-hmm.
and his signature on April 24th. Now, when I requested this year for the chain of custody on the truck, it being logged into evidence at the DPS and logged out,
Yes.
well, guess what? Well, Young failed to do. He failed to log it in, and he failed to log it out.
I think he did it on purpose.
He just
That's
says, "Oh,
quite an
well,
oversight."
they were law enforcement sheriff deputies, but I didn't get their names and didn't get them to sign out on it." So they
He
have
did that on purpose.
no record of it going in or out. And here's the damning stuff: there is not one picture of the evidence, like the fluids on the floorboard of the truck, that were taken by crime scene specialists, where they laid their 6-inch ruler next to those stains to give you an idea of their size.
Right.
So let Blakely to testify that, oh, they're the size of a large hen egg. That's not forensic testimony. That's a housewife's testimony. Well, how big a blood spot was it on the bed? Oh, it's about the size of a big hen egg. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
And of course, Karen Blakely wasn't there when they processed in the truck on the 24th. She's in East Texas celebrating her daddy's birthday. So all of Karen Blakely's testimony in the stand being proffered by Lisa Tanner is when Karen Blakely looked through the window of the truck, while Ed was making the phone call back to Bastrop to being told that they found a body and not to process in the truck and load up the crime lab and lead them back to the crime scene. So in Karen Blakely's look through the window of a locked pickup, that's the testimony she gave. But she wasn't there when they processed it. And there are no pictures of the inside of that truck being processed. The only pictures they had that they introduced into evidence were the ones that Ed Somala took when he opened the truck with Fennell. Because they never had it, they never processed it. They didn't have to use the black light to find Rodney's fingerprints in the truck because they never processed it.
Speaking of which, I have a question. So did anybody even check, since her fingernails were clipped, did anybody even check Fennell's body or whatever to see if there were any scratches or struggle wounds on him or something like that?
No.
Why would they? They didn't search the house, the apartment. I'm
talking about like wounds on Fennell, because they didn't clip the nails for nothing.
Yeah, but they didn't check him for. They didn't really question him.
Okay.
Really.
We need to move back to Heather because I just needed to clarify whether Dr. Baker tried to relate the heat that led to those burns as a potential cause of why the rigor is all wrong, and he didn't do it, and that is incompetence. But I don't need that.
About that too.
We don't need that now.
Her being blue in the face?
So,
well,
they mentioned her being blue in the face, like at the scene.
Well,
because she was definitely blue. She was blue in the face.
Right, but see, she was blue in the face because Josie, she's blue in the face because her legs, her thighs, and her calves, when she's rolled up in a ball in the truck, are over the top of her chest, making her face and lower body the lowest point on her body, which means all the blood that was in her calves, in her thighs, ran downhill and completely filled up every bit of space on her chest and her face, into just the flow filled up, it's like filling up a glass, all the way to the top of her face. So she was never face down, she was always face up. And you see this because the lividity is not the proper depth of lividity. If it was just her blood in her face and she was laid on her face, it wouldn't be that dark. But she's dark because she's got 2 to 3 times the normal volume of blood in her face. Now, because all the blood in her body is now in the lower third of her body.
Okay,
lower third to half.
Hold up, David.
So,
hold up 1 second. Because this was something that we've talked about several times. Like you said, let's go back a bit to Heather,
right?
And the courtroom.
Yeah, we need to. Yeah.
Because 726, who I know, I'm convinced this is David Piercy, is saying how Stacey is sorry, not Stacey, Heather is irrelevant because she had zero contact with Stacey's family, and at or near the time David Reed committed the rape
everything
and murder.
He says is irrelevant.
So, hold up, Josie. Hold
everything he says is irrelevant.
Hold up. So, David, are you related to Stacey by any chance? Because when someone makes a statement like that, to me, it seems like they're compensating for something, and I don't know what you're trying to compensate for.
They're grasping at straws. Heather is relevant in two areas. She's a blood relative of Stacey. As a general rule, blood relatives of a victim believe in what the state tells them until they begin to see things that cause them to question. Heather has come to, over time, originally she believed Rodney did it,
Yeah,
but over
and she said it.
time, yes, over time, she saw that no, that the manipulating, the evidence is being manipulated, the family's being manipulated, and she's convinced that Rodney is innocent. Now, the reason she's relevant tonight is
She was
she
in the
sat through
courtroom.
trial.
She's in the
Yes.
courtroom.
I mean, what could be more relevant than talking about
Exactly.
what happened in the courtroom than the person who was there?
Yeah, we might have strayed off topic a little bit
Well-
with some other information, but
Right. I just needed
here
to know
is
the
Heather who was there. Now, if you're
I
not
guess
there,
my question is I had no contact with them around the time she was murdered, so like I wasn't getting ready to go up to her wedding.
the wedding, right?
I guess I didn't show up to either one of the memorial services. I wasn't the one that the lady at the funeral that represented the funeral home talked to about asking my cousin to quit touching her face because they didn't want it to melt and we needed to hurry up because the wax that was used to build up the side of her face, I wasn't there. So,
Right.
he's an
No, you're
idiot.
being now, Heather, you're being facetious here, right?
I'm
Yes,
being
she is.
very
Very
facetious.
facetious.
No, because those people out there like David,
Oh yeah.
no, they're thinking that you're telling the truth. We need to make sure, because I know you're being facetious, because I know you were there.
No,
Exactly.
I was there. Like, and that's the thing is like, Carol called my mom pretty much as soon as Stacey went missing and left a message on the machine. So like, I mean, it's just very, he's very clueless about the inner workings of a family.
Yeah. So look, we need to move on because we know he's a distraction, and so
Yeah.
and I need to know more about this testimony. You told me the key that I needed to know that Andrew Baker talked about that she's out of rigor, but he didn't associate it with the biggest, the 600-pound elephant in the room, the burns. Damn it! What
Yeah.
caused them? And see, Bayardo has a history of exactly doing this, not putting it in writing and telling the state, the facts verbally.
Yeah.
Now, I had him interviewed in 2009
Well,
by the Star Telegram, where he told them that he didn't take autopsy notes because he didn't want them to be subpoenaed. Well, only the defense subpoenas,
right.
records. So Bayardo's admitting that he doesn't put the facts in the record, in the autopsy report, to disable the defense from contradicting him at trial. And that's exactly what he did here, because we have records now showing he told the state that these are slow burns, but he didn't tell the defense.
All right. So
yeah,
Heather,
one thing that was interesting today, was Dr. Baker's testimony, especially when he was being crossed by Lisa Tanner, was she would put something up for him to read, like she'd put it up so it would show up on the screen for him to read, or she would read it and then remove it. And there were probably 3 times that I can remember where he said, "Can you put that back up there real quick?" And she would put it back up and he would read it, and then he would read the rest of it, which kind of gave more information. And it did not do her any favors because she really wanted to stop right there.
right. So
Right,
she's
exactly.
addressing the information in a vacuum.
No, so let me explain something you don't know because you're not, well versed in the courtroom proceeding. She didn't take whatever she put up on that board and then present it to the judge or the clerk as an exhibit of the state, did she?
Nope.
You see, what she's doing is she's taking documents, she's putting them up, asking them a question off of them, and she's not admitting them into evidence, which means they will be gone. And nobody will know what the hell she put up what the rest of it said or anything. And she will then
objected.
write in, well, she'll do her briefs, and she'll put in her briefs whatever she wants, but nobody will have, it will not be a document in the record. And so it looks like, that he agreed with her. See, this is corrupt prosecutors. This is what they do all the time, is they'll present a document to a witness. I even had them, a district attorney, present an autopsy report to a medical examiner on the stand, not introduce it into evidence, and then when the autopsy report was submitted, since it was shown to the jury and to the medical examiner, it's shown to the jury. But as soon as the jury rules, those records are taken and given back to the prosecutors because they weren't admitted into evidence. Do you know what was in the foreman's question to the judge?
What?
Which of the two autopsy reports, was the final autopsy report? Bayardo had written two autopsy reports, one a homicide, one an accidental death. Nobody knew it. So when the district attorney presented Bayardo the autopsy report, directly underneath it was another copy of the same autopsy report, signed and dated the same day.
Just written
one
differently.
One a homicide, one an accidental death, and the jury foreman's going, which one of these two autopsy reports is the final autopsy report? Because the final autopsy report overrides the first one.
Right.
You know what the judge told him? It's not in evidence. Keep deliberating. That 18-year-old girl is serving 50 years in prison over that trick.
So, Heather, did you see other times when Lisa Tanner did things like that as she cross-examined?
Well, I do know that every time Reed's team went to put anything into evidence,
yes,
and have it marked, that they objected, because they
Really?
kept saying, "Well, the testimony is what we go by. We don't need to have that in evidence. We don't need to have the report in evidence. We don't need to have the affidavit in evidence." So, like, whatever it was, they didn't need to have it in evidence, and he overruled them every time and marked it as an exhibit.
Okay, well, that's good. That is good, though.
I told you that there's an indication beginning to build that they might be getting ready to throw Lisa Tanner under the bus.
Yeah,
over this.
You and I were talking about that, Fisher.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was like every time. I mean, the affidavit that Charles Wayne Fletcher wrote, when it was all said and done, they said, "We'd like to mark this as exhibit whatever," and the state objected. We don't need that because his testimony is
no, the affidavit is best evidence.
Right. And so they kept and the judge overruled them every time.
Wait, hold up.
Now,
hold on, you guys. Hold on. David Piercy, sir, please, 773-789-7839. Because you're putting in this comment section that I notice you have no rebuttal to the trial transcript. The trial what trial? I can't even talk right now. What
so
trial
if you
transcripts are you talking about, David? I'd really like to know, because right about now
if you scroll up, Kevin, he's he dropped in a transcript that talked about the James Slaughter and stuff. And what he doesn't understand is we're talking about one thing, and he's like, Mr. Johnny on the spot's going to run in here real quick and drop all this information.
Wait. He has James Slaughter's transcripts stuff?
That's what he questioned.
Has he presented any of that stuff online to you, Kevin?
No, not to me. But if he wants to talk about
James
Slaughter, Joy is right here. If he wants to talk about James Slaughter, let's go.
There's a reason I'm asking you this, Kevin.
Yeah.
Those are so limited that knowing what he's trying to put up there, it helps frame in who he is. Now, I'm to the point, I've had enough of him. If he won't come on the air, Kevin, I'm not interested in even mention his name again.
Yeah, come on.
I mean, if he
you're
doesn't
being
have the
ridiculous
balls
now.
yeah, right. If he wants to hide off in the corners and throw rocks, just close the window and close the storm shutters and move on. Good, because it's a waste of time.
One of two things are going to happen, David Piercy. One of two things are going to happen. You're either going to be ignored or I'm going to block you. So put up or shut up.
Throw somebody
At this
some
point.
degree that he claims to have in my face, and I tell him it's a learning curve.
Come on.
So.
Yeah, but Josie,
This
here's the thing. Here's my thing. The whole objective of this, my platform, like I said, have acceptance through enlightenment. You're going to enlighten us, or you're going to sit in the dark somewhere. Go suck your thumbs over in the corner somewhere. Don't come with foolishness and have nothing to back it up. You're going to talk about trial transcripts, and we're here presenting information that says, hey, this is a miscarriage of justice in this whole thing, and here is why. So if you want to say something, I've given you the opportunity to come on and say something. Call. Use the number 773-789-7839. If you're going to continue with this foolishness, I'm going to block you. So make up your mind what you want to do and make it up now.
Yeah, and I understand too. As you've just seen in this in this last half hour little piece, I don't care if you're a witness for the state or the defense. If you're not telling the truth and not using and not taking all the evidence into account and trying to carve out a little piece, I'll jump on you either way. I'm about the truth, about the facts, about how it really is, not about how is the expedient way the defense medical examiner who raises more questions about his competency. See, like I said, he may be a defense medical examiner, but I'm telling you, his ignoring that key piece, because you can't set time of death without taking into account all the evidence that is related. And it's just like he said, he testified that heat, and Tanner tried to do it too. It's a hot day. It's hard humidity. Wouldn't that affect the rigor? Well, wait a minute. Wouldn't third-degree burns and heating the body to that point
Well, David, I don't
affect the rigor?
I wouldn't even go that far, Fish, because who gets third-degree burns just sitting in the sun? Well, I guess extended periods of time in the sun, but this is early in the morning. To what?
No, you're wrong, Kevin. Bodies don't. The only time you ever see these type of burns, and these burns are noted in forensic history. In fact, right now, where they occur the most?
Where?
In the Pacific Northwest, where they're going through that 110-degree heat wave. If there's a car accident and somebody gets thrown out on the pavement...
That wasn't the case here, though, with Stacey.
No, of course not. It's a mild day.
Right.
She's laying in the shade.
So
Yeah,
that doesn't apply.
right.
That's what I'm saying.
No,
that doesn't apply there.
Yeah. The burns weren't caused by the sun.
Right.
And because the rigor is broken irregularly, and Bayardo tells you it's slow burns, which means heat extended over a long duration.
Okay.
And they're talking, and he's not saying, well, look at the angle of the sun for shadow marks on the burns. That's what he's not saying that. He's pointing them to look at the hood of the truck and the engine block.
Right.
So he knows this is heat far greater than the sun.
Okay.
So, you need to get there. Now, just to be clear, I don't give a shit what Andrew Baker said today on the stand, because it's worthless. Do you know why?
Why do you say it's worthless?
Because Bayardo illegally did the autopsy, and that's the documents I sent out.
Okay, so hold that thought. Hold that thought, David.
Sure.
Hold that thought. Heather.
So when Baker was being on direct,
Yeah.
one of the things that he said was he talked about how Bayardo was incorrect about that anal dilation and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why he got into that was because he kept pointing out that there is no forensic finding in an autopsy for a sexual assault because it's a legal term. It's not like
Not a medical.
really like a medical examiner is there to report like the medical and the biological like findings.
Right.
The
So
science.
if there were lacerations, they would be doing that. But one thing that he did say that was like he picked up on in the transcript that Bayardo had said that it was like he went. Remember, I said before he went from abrasions to lacerations,
Right.
and then it was actually they talked
Tearing.
about anal tearing. And when the Innocence Project attorney asked him, like, where did he think that phrase came from? And he said that he thought that it was a lay prosecutor trying to explain what it was. But the issue is that then Lisa Tanner continued to use it as she was asking questions. Not only that, but at the end, in her closing. Argument, she misrepresented what it was. And that was one thing that on redirect, the Innocence Project attorney brought out. So when he actually went through and was being, when he was talking about the stuff for, I believe it was Karen Blakely, because he talked about Megan Clement a little bit, but it was mostly Karen Blakely and Bayardo that he discussed. So on her cross, she did ask him, by the way, how many times he'd worked with the Innocence Project.
Yes.
And it's been 3 times, and he's testified twice for them. So, and he didn't ask for the closing arguments until like almost a year after he started working on the case. So like he had already done his report and all his findings and everything before he even looked at the closing arguments. So
Right, I have his full report.
Yeah. So some of the things that Lisa Tanner talked about or asked him about in trying to get some room on the time of death was like he had stated that the last timestamp he saw was like at 8:22, and that it has like the starts and stops in it because it's not minute by minute, right? So I think altogether it was like about 45 minutes of video, but they were there for about 4 hours, I guess it was. So, but she asked, did he know that the timestamp was off by an hour? And he said no, that he didn't realize that. And she asked, would that make a difference? He tells her no. She's like, well, based on, hold on, I have RM. Let me think what RM is. Rigor mortis. Based on the rigor mortis evidence, it could be well before or after 3 to 5 a.m. And he's like, yes, because he talked about like when it peaks, and so as it's coming in and out. And he also did talk about that that what they were noticing in some of the places where it was kind of a greenish color, that was indicative of
Post-mortem decomposition.
Is of the decomposition already starting to take place.
It's not. Anybody who has a crock pot that doesn't put enough water in it and puts a roast in it, and the roast is leaning up against the side of the crock pot, after it's cooked, when you open it, as it's cooking, you'll notice that the meat has a green tint to it. When it's above the water line, touching the side of a crock pot. I know I'm not a good cook. That's why I know this, because I've screwed up a roast before because I didn't follow the instructions I was given. It says, put the roast on before you leave and follow the instructions. Well, I didn't. I just throw it in there. Put a little water in it, thought, yeah, that's good enough. And then when I came back, I thought, oh my God, it's rotted because of the green color of the meat touching the upper side of the crock pot where it's above the cooking line,
Mhm.
where the heat concentrates, and that's what you have on Stacey's face, is because that's where that heating pad was cooking her face. And that's what that green is. It has nothing to do with decomposition. She hasn't been dead that long.
Right. That was
But-
a, that
but
was a
again-
thought. That was a thought that I had too. How long would she have been dead for
Sure.
them to be start talking about decomposition? You know.
Yeah. Well, I think we've kind of gotten. I think we've gotten where we need to go with the testimony of Baker. That
Not
he
yet.
he was
'Cause
he
I
was
think
good
they mentioned
about.
something about the sperm. They mentioned something about the spermatozoa,
Yes.
didn't they?
Yes,
Kevin?
they did.
Yeah, but the sperm and stuff is pretty much irrelevant in this case, and it truly is. I don't mean to push on.
Why
but
do you
I-
say
but
that? Why do you
there's
say that, Fisher?
because of the new documents that I got in January that shows that the panties that are on Stacey
Mhm.
are logged in with Marianne Alt's date of death.
Well,
So
yeah,
the
I had
panties
shown
that were
that
on
too.
Stacey that the sperm was listed, huh? You have those, right?
Yeah, I had shown those in one of our previous broadcasts.
Right. And so the sperm that they're using isn't Rodney's. The DNA, it's David Lawhon's. And as it is on the beer cans. They intended to frame David Lawhon.
Well,
And
we won't
and see,
get into that.
The reason
Let's
I
not
want
get into that
the reason
tonight,
I'm,
really.
Huh?
But let's not get
right.
into
The
that
reason I
part
want to
of it.
move on.
Yeah.
The reason I want to move on is Fletcher's testimony
Oh, yeah.
about
Okay.
what Jimmy Fennell told him about Stacey and Rodney being together, which negates
And the insurance
the
lady,
DNA,
too.
the sperm stuff in the beginning.
Well-
Anyway,
Well, okay, so
And the insurance lady testified, too.
yeah, and the insurance lady. So, Heather,
Yeah.
I really let's address those sequentially. Let's look at the sperm.
Okay.
What was it that Andrew Baker was saying about the sperm?
So, well, on direct or on cross?
Well,
but you can
What
do
do you
both
wanna
because
know?
do it on direct first,
Okay.
and then what Tanner tried to twist.
So basically, let's see. Here we go. So the state was incorrect on the length of time, whether it was intact or otherwise. Karen Blakely had said 26 hours. Michelle Clements, she even said that rape kits are not usually collected after more than 24 hours because, like, it wouldn't be worth it because you wouldn't get anything out of it. And he was adamant and even showed that there was existing literature available that contradict that. Those statements were known to be incorrect. There is no reason why they should have testified like that at the time. She had also cited Karen Blakely cited Forensic Science International, but she didn't cite all of it. So, like, she really just cherry picked what it was out of it that aligned with what her
What Tanner
testimony
wanted.
was going to be
right.
about the 26 hours. And so he put all the references and stuff up. They, like, everything that he talked about just really supported what Rodney has said about, it was
The last
sex,
time he
like,
was with
days
Stacey.
before.
Right.
Yeah. And he even said that, like, for a sexual assault, for a sexual assault to have been contemporaneous, you would have found a lot more. The other thing that he talked about, and I didn't write all the levels down, but they had kept going back to, like, Karen Blakely would say, well, in her experience, you know what I mean? Like, she would phrase things like that.
Right.
And he said that really, when you look at it, there's evidence-based medicine. And then, and that's like the top of it. So he gave that at the top. And then as he's going down, the very least reliable one that means anything to anybody in the scientific and medical world is someone's experience. And that was a lot of what she based her stuff on. So they talked about, they did there was a study actually on how long the sperm the sperm would stay active, and they talked about the loss of tails intact. Thank you. They talked about the loss of the tails and all that kind of stuff. And he said, actually, the loss of tails is not a good indicator of postcoital interval. So when they asked again about Blakely's testimony, the phrase that he used was her testimony was dramatically incorrect. She cited but misrepresented the reference that she had, and there was contemporaneous known data at the time that she would have had access to. In fact, the reference that she cited, like I said, she didn't cite the whole thing, because for him, like, you can pull that one sentence out of the reference that she was using, but he says that you also have to look at, and David will probably like this one, you also have to look at what the references were in the book that you're using, because that's where you find information. Because actually what she was looking at was only one study.
Yeah, she was looking at a footnote.
Right. She didn't look at any of the other information. So he just continued to go on about, like, how it was incorrect. There was information available at the time. They just didn't do it. And so when he talked about, let me get to the other page. Hold on. He also said that there was no basis in academic literature to support anything that Bayardo said in regard to an assault. So no basis at all in anything that they had. He explained using his PowerPoint. He had a control photo of a person who had died, and it was a picture of the dilation of the anus. And he showed Stacey's postmortem, the photo, and it looked like it was almost identical to the control. Yeah. And so that's not
evidence of sexual assault.
Testimony. Yeah. So he said that it was that Bayardo's information was incorrect, and he had irreparably flawed opinions.
Okay.
So
now, so you know, add a little more in here. Meg Clements is from LabCorp. That's the private lab in North Carolina that Tanner was using. Just to give you an idea of who Megan Clements is, in these Texas District and County Attorney Association web blogs, Tanner has, and I have these blogs saved, and I can provide them to you, Kevin. That Megan Clements is her go-to girl when she needs somebody to talk about. So what is actually being said here is that Karen Blakely and Meg Clements allowed Tanner to manipulate their testimony to limit, what they spoke about and how they said it, the same way he tried to do to Baker when she would show him those little clips, and then jerk them down real quick without letting him read all of it.
Yes.
That's who Tanner is. And that's what she always does. That's what she did with Megan Clements. That's what she did with Karen Blakely. Now, Karen Blakely, we have evidence of her tampering. She was, Karen Blakely was front and center tampering with Stacey's body at the crime scene. And shortly thereafter, when they redressed Stacey's body in those blue panties, and that's Karen Blakely re-swabbing.
And she was smiling. She was smiling while she was doing it, too. Smiling and laughing.
She enjoys her job.
Well, she actually, here's the deal. She quit right after doing this. So apparently she was being pushed into it, and then she bailed. The DPS went into right after she collected this evidence.
One thing that Andrew McRae said in his opening statements, he talked about Bayardo going back and saying, like pretty much recanting, there wasn't a sexual assault. Yeah, that wasn't the correct time of death. They shouldn't have used my information to make it that narrow. You know, like all the stuff that Bayardo said after.
He always does this. He did in Michael Morton's case. He did in Kathy Lynn Henderson's case.
So
He always does it.
When when Andrew McCrae was talking about that, he did say that although Megan Clement and Karen Blakely did not themselves say that they were wrong, that their employers wrote statements to that they were wrong. So he did get that piece in there. So it was interesting when Lisa Tanner was cross-examining him. She tried over and over and over and over again to get him to say that Stacey was dressed for work. Like she was trying to get it in there that she was headed for work. Stacey was going to work. And so when, like, some of the things that she would say was like, she had said something about, she said, now earlier you said that she was killed before midnight. And it, like, obviously she died in those clothes that she had on. And he interrupted her and said, I did not say that she was killed before midnight. And I did not say that she was killed in those clothes. And then she would be like, okay, fair enough. You know, like she said fair enough so many times.
Yeah, she's trying to slip little tidbits in that she's going to use in her brief.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is he was just really on his toes about that. Like he didn't let, I mean, it got to the point where she would say, so, you know, you see this clip that's in her hair, like right here, I'm pointing right here. See that clip in her hair? So, you know, she had gotten ready for work. She had gotten ready for work. Her hair was pulled back. She had mascara on. She had her contacts in, like blah, 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 blah. And he just would not, like, he wouldn't bite. Finally, she said, would you agree that it's common sense? And he's like, I'm not here to do common sense. And she kept pushing it. The Rodney's team objected because they were like, he's told her countless times.
She's leading the witness.
Right.
Exactly. And so, but the judge overruled it.
Right.
Oh, and you know what?
You know why he overruled it? It's on cross. You get greater leeway on cross than on direct.
One thing that happened very early on that I forgot to mention, it was in Tanner's opening statement.
Yes.
She mentioned something about a rape that had occurred 6 months prior. And Andrew McCrae jumped on it and he was like, objection, you have already ruled that none of that stuff is admissible. This is why I think that it would be best if she weren't in the courtroom, because she is openly like going against what your rulings were. And so, and he sustained it. And so she didn't talk about it anymore, but she tried to slide that in with her opening.
They're trying to link Rivas rape as the foundation to get at Rodney on the DNA matches. That's what she was trying to do. And you see, here's the deal. No, it's Rivas. No, well, Harbottle was in October of 95. Rivas is in May, and they know it, and Rodney and Rivas was living together. Harbottle didn't know who her rapist was until to this day. She won't say it was Rodney. It's saying that they said it was Rodney. No, it's Rivas.
She said she was raped by Rodney on the People magazine special.
I'm sorry?
On the People magazine special, she said she was raped by Rodney Reed on the People magazine special.
No. Harbottle's real specific. She says, she'll always say, I never said Rodney did it. The DNA said Rodney did it. As it was presented to her by Tanner.
That's not what she said on that interview that I saw. She said, my name is Vivian Harbottle and I was raped by Rodney Reed. That's exactly what she said.
Okay. Yeah, and Heather will back me up on this. This is that damn Marie Hedgewood putting words in her mouth, which I went through that for 4 full days and almost walked out a couple of times. I'm going to warn you, to trust 2020, ABC 2020, I'm going to tell you, I have never seen a more corrupt operation in my life.
Now, this was
But,
People Magazine.
but that was Marie
this was the People
Hedgewood
Magazine thing.
cutting. Now, I'm telling you, Josie, you had to go through it to know what she's doing. And what Marie Hedgewood would do would have you say something, and she would do a clip. And I'm telling you, that's not the full statement of Harbottle, because I have watched Harbottle for 20 years, and she's always prefaced, the saying that Rodney raped her by always saying, "I never said it. The DNA says he raped me." And Marie Hedgewood, she cut out that the DNA said, and did that clip, and she did that all through that 2020. I'll never trust 2020 again as long as I live. That's not a news organization. That is a scam.
All right, so
and you had to go through it
before we go off again on this tangent, because we can, and it's not
irrelevant. I don't want to go off on the tangent. I've said all I'm saying on that point.
Yeah. So, Heather.
Yes.
More court.
More court.
More court.
Like I was saying, she just really kept trying to really pretty much paint him in a corner. And so one of the things that she asked, I know I said about so she talked about the hair clip. She talked about that Stacey had her contacts in. She talked about that she had put her earrings on. And today I just saw, like, in the listing over here of people that are commenting, it says Lisa Tanner and Karen Blakely noted Stacey was not wearing mascara in the transcripts, and the pictures show heavy, clumpy mascara. What's interesting is today, because I never knew that about what they said in the transcripts, but today she said that Stacey had on mascara, and what she was getting at was she wanted him to say that it was obvious Stacey had gone to bed, had gotten up and
put on her makeup before heading to work.
Exactly. And all I kept thinking is, no, what happened was Jimmy Fennell killed her as soon as they got in the apartment. She hadn't taken off her makeup. She hadn't taken out her contacts. She hasn't done anything with her earrings or her, like, clips that are in her hair. Mm-hmm. And then all he had to do is put her HEB uniform on her. Like, it's not rocket science. And I wanted so badly for him to say, well, we don't know who put those clothes on her. Like, because nobody saw her.
Right, yeah, you got to say that the crime scene is staged, obviously. And if you've got a staged crime scene, then you have to consider all the evidence is staged.
Right.
And, the other thing was that Calvin Garvey on Cross.
Garvey was there.
No. No.
At the trial?
Right.
At the original
Lisa
trial.
Tanner brought up that Calvin Garvey, when he was cross-examining, says intact semen, and that Karen Blakely, like, corrected him and said, no, it's sperm. And the outside window is like 26 hours. And I cannot for the life of me figure out why she even brought that up, because I know a lot of people that don't have experience might say sperm and semen, assuming it's the same thing, which it's not. Mm-hmm. But I don't understand what that question was about. Anyway, she also asked about Elizabeth Johnson, and she asked him, had he received any of her reports or anything like that, and he said that he had no recollection of seeing her testimony.
Well, what Tanner was after there is those 42 pages that Tanner gave Barbish at that evidentiary hearing in 2001, and told Barbish that those were Elizabeth Johnson's notes. Well, they're not. Elizabeth Johnson produced no documents like that to the defense at all. Those were made up by Tanner trying to allege that Elizabeth Johnson tested all of this evidence, the bras, the swabs.
Right.
If you read Elizabeth Johnson's report, she delivered at trial. She delivered with her testimony that would go to the state, because the defense is not required to turn over any of their testing or anything, just their final reports. And in the report, it's a 4-page report, and Elizabeth Johnson says that she was asked by the defense to do third-party DNA. She was never asked to test anything between Rodney and Stacey because the defense was alleging Rodney and Stacey were having an affair. So any DNA of Rodney on Stacey was best evidence of that affair. So naturally, she wouldn't be testing that. The only third-party DNA that was collected off Stacey at the crime scene was the hairs, and that's the only thing she tested.
Gotcha.
So those notes came in to Tanner.
I do have a question, though, because
Sure.
during McRae's opening statement, he brought up Jimmy Fennell failing the polygraph test.
Three
right?
times, yeah.
3 times.
Yeah. So, but then Lisa Tanner, during hers, says something about he wasn't the only one that failed polygraph tests. There were 2 or 3 people that failed polygraph tests. Do you know anything about that, David?
Wait, hold on.
No, I
Before-
don't, and I don't,
before
and
you-
I wouldn't know who they would polygraph.
Hold on,
Okay.
David. 1 second. Just to say thank you to my affiliates before you get into your answer, David. To say thank you to my affiliates: One Harmony Radio, Island Worldwide, NIE Radio, WGLRO, the Foundation Reader Network, ClintonLindsay.com. Thank you guys very much. I know you guys are going to get off right about now. The Night Shift to DJ Kevin Stew continues right here on kevinstew.com. And thank you very much to the affiliates. Much love to you. David, back to your response with the
Yes,
other
I've
tests.
seen no documentation of them ever taking polygraphs of anybody else. So it wouldn't. Now, I'm not saying they didn't. What I would
Right.
Yeah,
say
I
is that
heard
Lisa
nothing about
Tanner, Lisa Tanner took those reports and stashed them in her AG's office in Austin, and nobody's ever seen them. So
Yeah,
That's
there's that too.
exactly what I started thinking. I was like, wait a minute. If that happened, why haven't we heard about it before now? So
Right. So who are the other suspects?
Yeah.
You know,
well, the only
Oh,
ones
no.
that they would polygraph, just looking at the evidence, would be David Board, because David Board might be the person that would, help Fennell get to Bastrop and back, because he's the partner, and Stacey used to babysit for David Board and his wife, and of
David
course we
Hall.
all know about
That's David Hall.
husbands and babysitters.
That's David
You know,
Hall.
so
and David
I'm
Hall.
sorry, David Hall. Thank you, Josie. David Hall. So I could see that he might have been polygraphed, except that would be a dangerous thing to do, because David Hall believed that Jimmy killed Stacey. So I don't think they would ever take the risk of polygraphing David Hall. The only other, there's no witnesses, no suspects that would make sense to
Okay.
polygraph, other than, I back off on that. If there's one person that I think they would polygraph, Rodney Reveal.
Oh.
Because Rodney Reveal was the last person Stacey talked to before her death. That was third party, not part of the family and the, law enforcement. And Rodney Reveal told Wardlow and Barton, Detective Barton, that the last time he saw Stacey was the Wednesday before her death, when she came over to check H-E-B prices against Walmart prices. He worked in the produce department. And they would have coffee together. And that particular morning when they had coffee together, he noticed that she appeared to be down and depressed, and he asked her what was wrong. And she said she was having trouble with her fiancé, and he had a violent temper. That's the only thing that Barton put in his report. Interestingly, Wardlow doesn't even mention it. But if you look at the timeline of how that statement came about. Rodney Reveal was supposed to be confirming Carol Stites' statement that Jimmy was likely the person who killed Stacey. And so to confirm that, I could see them polygraphing him just to make sure, because they were building on arresting Fennell at that time. But that's the only person that I could see. And boy, I'd sure like to see that polygraph, those questions.
Right?
Right?
I don't care about the answers. I want to see the questions asked.
Yeah.
Oh, the questions will tell you everything about what they were getting to do to Fennell.
So, yeah, go ahead,
They need to
Heather.
talk to Carla Hall, too.
What, Josie?
They need to talk to Carla Hall, too, the wife, the ex-wife.
No. I'd never. See, Carla Hall, I've seen a lot of statements and stuff early on from Carla Hall back 20 years ago, and Carla Hall didn't know nothing. And a lot of what the supposition about, David Hall and Carla and them being involved and knowing, no, they didn't. They really.
I remember she said something about being intimidated by Lisa Tanner or something about the beer can.
Oh no, Tanner was doing that. Tanner does that to everybody. She threatens everybody. I mean, that's she suborns perjury. Lisa Tanner is a walking crime machine. Her and her sidekick, Missy Wolf.
Oh, by the way, Missy Wolf walked inside the courtroom and was standing there for a little bit, and Andrew McCrae noticed and said, Judge Langley, I'd like to point out that Missy Wolf, the investigator, is standing in the courtroom right now, and we have her on we've subpoenaed her, and all she did was look at the judge, and the judge said, we've invoked the rule, and she left. She turned around and shut the door.
Now, what you need to wait. I need to ask Josie.
Heather.
Heather to do something for me. You need to, as you see Tanner, you're going to be there tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Look to see if she has a wedding ring on, and then when Mitzi Wolf comes in, check to see if she has a wedding ring on.
Okay.
Because here comes the problem. If they're same-sex marriage, they can't compel her to testify, Mitzi Wolf, against Lisa and the stuff they did, because the Attorney General's ruled under Obama that same-sex couples have the same rights as heterosexual husband and wives. You can't be compelled to testify against your spouse. So and because all that stuff is hidden, now you can't find out if law enforcement officers are married and where they live, and all that stuff is sealed. So the telling point will be the wedding rings.
Okay.
Or in Missy Wolf's case, she just might have a barbed wire band wrapped around that finger.
Behave.
And you know what, David, do you remember a few years ago when I took a picture of the person that I thought was Missy Wolf, and you said, no, that's not her? Yeah, it is. It's the same lady.
Yeah. I found one online with her and Lisa together, and I thought, damn. See, that changed.
I've never seen a picture of Missy Wolf.
You see that the game they played about Missy Wolf being fluffy.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious about that, because it's clearly fluffy is Tanner, is Lisa.
Oh,
Mitzi Wolf is Daddy.
Ooh, okay.
And it was obvious in the picture, that. And it shocked me, because I thought that Tanner was the aggressive, the dominant of the two. But when you see them together, you see it's entirely not true. And see that the reason now, there are other things that you could say, but it tells me who is the aggressive one about tampering with the evidence, and it's Missy. Who's the driving force. And then when I start looking back at the documents, you see it. Like the beer can DNA. It's Missy that's handling this.
Okay.
And
So
Tanner is just presenting it. But it's Mitzi Wolf who's the hands-on, tampering, moving the evidence around. And so it kind of changed the scenario greatly, as to who was doing what.
okay. So before we
So
go too far in that.
Yeah. We're going as far as we're going. Now we're going back to
Yeah.
Heather, because that was an interesting little tidbit. I knew that Mitzi had shown up.
yeah, yeah.
So-
I didn't realize that it was that one that the woman that I thought it was originally, that it really was her. I didn't realize that.
Okay. So
So that was pretty much all of Dr. Baker. Like
Right. Now I'm
basically
interested
Dr.
in
Baker.
Fletcher.
yes.
Yeah, the next one is Fletcher. And so when they started with him, basically what it was, they kind of talked about, like, so how did you know them, all that kind of stuff. And he said that he got introduced to Stacey by Jimmy as his fiance, that he helped Stacey and Carol move in when they moved to the apartment in Giddings, that I guess he helped Jimmy get them moved. And they would like go bowling and that kind of stuff. So apparently,
Was he married at the time?
yes,
Okay.
his wife's name was Etta. So so he would go over, and he went over and they were going to have a barbecue late March, early April. They were getting everything ready, and basically what he kind of said was that Stacey told Jimmy, I'm going to the pool and you can take care of this yourself, kind of a thing, right? And
Well, barbecue's a man's thing, you marinate the meat, you marinate yourself. What do you need the wife doing to interfere with that?
so their conversation was really abrupt with each other, like they were curt.
Mm-hmm.
And when she walked off, that's when Jimmy said that he thought that, he said a very crudely way that he thought that she was having a relationship with a black man. But I will say
did he use Rodney's name? See, because that's the way 24 posted it, that Fletcher said that Fennell told her that she was sleeping with Rodney.
No.
Rodney Reed, and I'm thinking that's not what I saw in that affidavit.
Yeah.
No, it was that she was sleeping with a black guy, but he used the N-word.
Right. But he didn't identify Rodney as that person.
No, he did not identify Rodney.
Because that shocked me when I saw that in the posting this afternoon from K-View.
Yes.
That Fletcher said that she was, sleeping with Rodney Reed, and I'm going, wait a minute.
No.
See, I told you about that.
What he said.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, he said that they were in front of the apartment when it happened, that he did not follow up. She said, did you ask him any questions about that? And he said, no, I didn't really ask him anything, because by then the food was ready, which everybody started laughing, because it was just the way he said it was like, no, I didn't ask him, because like the food was done. Like he had a barbecue to get to.
Right.
He also said that Curtis was there as well, that Curtis Davis was there, and he heard Jimmy say that too.
Oh,
but,
wow.
And so then Lisa Tanner, of course, jumped on that when she did the cross. So anyway, he said also that he went to to Corpus, to the graveside funeral in Corpus, and that he actually rode with Jimmy and Jimmy's parents, and that Jimmy didn't say more than 3 or 4 words the whole time.
Damn.
And that he just had a real, that Wayne said that he himself had just this gut feeling. And he said that after that, there was really never any more contact between them. I think he saw him at the department one time and said hi to him, and Jimmy just kept on walking and didn't say anything. And so they asked, why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you report this? And he said that he was moving away. he still had family here, and he didn't want to go against local law enforcement.
Well, there's something else here too, because you got to get the timeline right. Rodney wasn't a suspect until March of '97. He was never a suspect in '96. So yes, there were problems between Stacey and Jimmy, and Jimmy believed that she was sleeping with a black guy, but that conversation and who killed Stacey were far apart, because immediately, within 3 weeks, David Lawhon is the suspect. That's why they're checking David Lawhon's truck for Stacey's body, checking the inside of David Lawhon's truck for DNA from Stacey and blood and so on and so forth. And this goes on for a couple of months. So Rodney's not the suspect until '97.
Right.
And Fletcher says he moved away when?
When did Fletcher move away?
Yeah,
I
Fletcher
guess
says he was moving away, didn't he? Didn't he say that? And he still had family?
Yeah, he said that he was moving away pretty soon, like after all that happened.
Well, right. Well, that happened in March and April of '96, and Rodney doesn't become a suspect until '97. So you could see why Fletcher didn't tell law enforcement. If Rodney had been the immediate suspect in May of '96, then that would be relevant. But if David Lawhon became the suspect, then the statement about Stacey and Jimmy and sleeping with a black guy isn't relevant, because David Lawhon's a white guy. You see, it changes why he didn't come forward.
So here's a question.
No,
here's a question posted.
I think that he didn't come forward for the reasons that he said.
Oh, of course.
I think that he was concerned that Jimmy did it, and if he came forward.
Right, but again, there was only the window of Jimmy doing it was only about 3 weeks, because they really went after Lawhon hard, because they intended to frame him in the first place, according to the evidence now.
Well, I think that their point is that's an alarming statement.
Mm.
And
of course, yeah.
He
and
should have told, when she ended up dead, he should have told somebody.
Well, right. He's a law enforcement officer. Right. If that's exculpable, and he should have come forward with it, and that's the one of the two reasons why there's an evidentiary hearing. If there weren't two officers that held back, there would be no evidentiary hearing this time. Those two officers are what did it, because they're peace officers. They have a duty.
Right.
So, and
so
that for me is also quite telling. Him saying, I didn't want to come forward because I was kind of afraid of the backlash. I was afraid of what might happen.
The thin blue line.
Right.
Well, and he talks about that a little bit more.
Didn't Fennell point Wayne out as a suspect?
Yes.
Really?
That's on that. Yeah, that's on the note that Crystal wrote. Matter of fact, the only reason why Wayne ended up there today was because when that note came to light, where Crystal had written like all the reasons why they had concerns about Jimmy,
mm-hmm.
When that note came to light and Rodney's defense team saw Wayne Fletcher's name on the note, they went and sought him out because he was contacted by the defense team in October of 2019, which is around when the Dr. Phil episode came out, which is when that note had just come out.
Yeah, but see those notes that Crystal took, they're not bait stamped. They weren't turned over to the
exactly.
defense.
Crystal was here earlier. She must have left.
No, not that Crystal.
Oh, okay.
Crystal, that's Stacey's sister, Crystal.
Oh, that Crystal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so he also said that he had asked to work the investigation, and Chris Walker told him no, that he was too close to it, so they wouldn't let him work the investigation.
Yes, and Chris Walker was now. So you know who Chris Walker is? He's the sergeant who helped Fennell canvass the high school parking lot. He's a sheriff department detective or sergeant, and he's the one who found the bags of clothes in the dumpster.
With
Now,
Ed.
after Ed, now there's a little bit more. After Ed Somola's death, Texas Ranger Rocky Wardlow rewrote the evidence sheet on the high school parking lot.
And left out the clothes.
Well, worse than that. The Ed Somola was a Bastrop detective, and the pickup is found in the Bastrop High School parking lot. And as such, the sheriff deputies have no jurisdiction. They just were helpers. They were spotters. They had Robert Foster take the pictures for Ed under Ed's direction. They had Chris Walker walk the parking lot looking for the keys and evidence, and that's when he found the bags of clothes. He can't collect any evidence. After Ed dies, Rocky Wardlow rewrites the spreadsheet in the name of Chris Walker, having been the one who collected the check carbons, the belt buckle, the napkins, the bags of clothes, everything. And see, the reason he wrote it that way is Lisa Tanner was going to have Chris Walker sponsor in the checks, the check carbons that were not found that they added.
Yes.
And in that report, that spreadsheet is where they wrote the bags of clothes out of evidence. And see, I talked to Chris Walker back in 2001, and he told me that Lisa Tanner told him that she was going to have him, introduce stuff in, and he had no idea what she was talking about because he didn't do it, and he told her he didn't do it. And she told him he was going to testify, and he said, hell no, I'm not going to testify to that. He had no idea what she was talking about, only that she wanted him to sponsor in evidence that he was not involved in collecting. And she told him that she would, if he didn't do it, that she would destroy his career. And he told her, bitch, go for it. Let's just see, how far you'll go.
And this is what he told you.
Huh?
And
this is what he told me.
Okay.
And they had a fight, and he told her, look, bitch, you go for it. If you think you can do it, you go for it. And I asked him, I said, do you know what she was wanting you to do? And he goes, I have no idea. And I said, I told him, I said, she wanted you to sponsor in all the evidence that Ed allegedly collected at the high school parking lot. He said, I didn't collect any of it. I was a sheriff deputy. That was a Bastrop Police Department's crime scene.
Okay.
And I said, do you know the evidence sheet shows that you collected all that evidence, not Ed Somola? That's when he blew a fuse.
Okay. Right. So hold on there.
They asked him, were there any other reasons that that he didn't come forward? And he said, yeah, Ed Somola was one of the reasons I didn't come forward.
Oh, he actually said that? About Ed's death was one of the reasons?
Oh, yeah.
In court.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
So he was like,
see, that's what I joked with you about, Kevin. I said, I'd just say, look what happened to Ed.
Yep.
Right.
And so, and he reiterated he didn't want to put the family in jeopardy, his family in jeopardy. So then on cross, Lisa Tanner says, so you went to the Corpus, to the burial, and you rode with Jimmy's parents? And he said, yes. And she says, do you remember Mark Brown? Because he was also in the car. And so I think Mark Brown is one of Jimmy's cousins. And then Fletcher said that she was like, she went back to his affidavit, and she said, and also here's the other thing, is she was very like she said, who assisted you with this affidavit? And he's like, my wife typed it up. And she's like, well, this looks like a lot of the other affidavits that have been done in this case. So did you ever actually meet with anybody from the defense team? Like have like a meeting face to face? And he's like, no, I didn't meet him till yesterday. Like she kept going. Yeah, she kept doing stuff like that. But anyway, so he says that it said in his affidavit that Jimmy seemed lethargic, like slow movements. And at one point, Wayne Fletcher asked Jimmy's mom if he was on any medicines. that could explain why he was acting that way. And so that's what he was like, yeah, he just like, he didn't talk. He was real lethargic, blah, blah, blah. And Lisa Tanner says to him, well, I mean, speaking about how people react, have you heard about the Michael Morton case?
Mm.
And then he just like he just looks at her and he's like, no. And so then they had to redirect because she had no more questions.
What was that about?
What was that for?
I don't
yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Did they suspect Michael Morton because he didn't like grieve appropriately or
Oh
something?
yeah, that's right. That's what that was
Okay.
one of the things that he didn't act right at the funeral.
So
That's always a contention when they go after.
The spouse?
Yeah, that's yeah.
Right.
On redirect, they asked about the reasons, and she said, "You mentioned Ed Salmella. Like, what do you mean?" And he said that he had heard things, and what he heard made him concerned that the same thing would happen to him.
Mm.
And so they went to put his affidavit in the record, and of course that was Lisa Tanner objected about it being there. It got overruled. But then Judge Langley asked for some clarification, and so he asked the Innocence Project attorney. He said, "I need you to clarify for me. Was this before or after Stacey's death?" And they said, she said his statement, like what Jimmy Fennell said to him, and he's like, right. And so she says, was when Jimmy said that to you, was that before or after Stacey's death? And he said, no, it was before her death. Because you remember he had talked about that.
Right, it was a barbecue, and she was there,
yeah.
right?
And so he said, and the other thing I want some clarification on is he talked about that he was afraid. Like, why was he afraid? And this is what Wayne Fletcher said, and I got confused. Because he said, well, a while back, Jimmy and Ed had been roommates. And now Stacey's dead, and Ed was dead too. I have family here, and I didn't want them harassed by local law enforcement.
Say what now? Jimmy was a roommate of Ed's?
When was
Yeah,
that?
I don't know if he misspoke and meant Rocky Wardlow was a roommate of Ed's.
Well, Rocky
Yeah.
Wardlow was a roommate of Ed's up to within 2 weeks of his death,
Right.
which
So I
would
didn't
have
know. I
made
don't
Rocky
know
Wardlow a suspect in Ed's death.
Right. So I don't know if he said the wrong name or.
Okay,
if
now
he said word.
to back up a little bit. Jimmy Fennell had a roommate in the trailer out. You know, it could have been Ed and Jimmy that rented that trailer out right off 95 and 1441, and then that lease ended, and it was just before Fennell got the job in Giddings. He was looking for a job, and so for a couple of weeks, Jimmy moved in with Stacey and Carol in their apartment in Bastrop. And that could have been when Ed Salmella then rented the apartment over there in the Arbors.
Which is where
And then when Rocky Wardlow's wife
Gotcha.
threw him out when she's filing for divorce, Rocky moved in and was sleeping on Ed's couch in the living room for those. So, yeah, because from mid-October of 95, that's when Jimmy and whoever his roommate, ended in that trailer park off 95 and 1441. So that could have been when Ed moved in and got his apartment
here it
in
is.
the Arbors.
Joy is saying it was Ed because Ed lived out there off 1441.
Then that's who the other roommate was with Jimmy. I knew Jimmy had a roommate, but I just never knew who it was.
And
Interesting.
so then it went And so she said something about Ed having committed suicide. And it was hard to hear, but I thought he said something about like Fletcher goes, supposedly, like that. And she said, yeah, supposedly. And then she didn't have any more questions for him. But it was just kind of like he put the whole Ed Salmela thing out there.
Yeah. And 729
and
is
then-
saying that, glad that Ed's murder is being acknowledged. So happy for Scott. Scott was supposed to be on this broadcast twice and didn't show, but we addressed that as best as we could. And so,
Yeah.
yes, for this to come up in this court hearing, that's a big deal. That is a big deal.
Yeah.
And see, the other thing is, for people that don't know, the medical examiner who allegedly did Ed's autopsy
Mhm.
didn't sign it.
Don't even go a step further than that. Don't even go
Huh?
Don't go a step
No,
further than that.
It's an issue that the defense hasn't raised yet. And when you raise Ed's autopsy and his suicide, it because it's Bayardo's signature.
Yeah,
and
but
and you're talking about Bayardo's credibility on knowing what he was doing on Stacey's autopsy. You see how these things are tied together?
oh no.
Yeah.
I see how they're tied
So
together,
anyway,
but I
but
don't want
yeah,
I don't
that's-
want you to touch it yet. Don't.
Yeah, I understand. No,
Yeah.
I didn't want to go any further. I just wanted, for the listeners that didn't know, this thing gets squirrelier and squirrelier the more you get into it.
Right. Heather.
So the last witness was Ruby Volek.
Yes.
Yes, the insurance agent.
Yeah, and Quincy handled her.
Who?
Quincy Neal.
Quincy. So Quincy was there on the defense team.
Yes.
David.
I'll be
David.
damned.
David.
Breathe, David.
David.
Hey, I'm just, this is the squirreliest bunch of people I've, on Rodney's defense team that I have ever. See,
Breathe.
so you don't
David.
know, Heather.
Breathe.
Just say one thing. 2 weeks ago, I was on with Kevin that Rodney was listening, and Joy, it came up that about James Slaughter and Rodney not being in Bastrop when Angela Hamby was raped. He had already gone back to Wichita Falls.
Right.
Well, then, right after that interview, Quincy texts Joy and tries to trip her up to say that Rodney was in Bastrop the night that Angela Hamby was raped. And she tells him again, why can't you get this straight?
Oh, goodness.
And she tells him, that Rocky had to meet with the police and David Board and tell them when he was leaving, because they then would notify Wichita Falls, and he only had X number of hours once that was done before he had to check in with the police department in Wichita Falls.
I actually talked to Joy about that. She told me the same thing, and I was just asking, why don't they just get with Wichita Falls law enforcement with the records to show that he was not in Bastrop at the time that Angela was raped? I'm like, and she says she doesn't know why Quincy won't do that.
See, Quincy's. I've known Quincy since 2002, and I would never let him be on my case on anything, even on a traffic fine, or to fight something with a homeowners association. The guy is a liar, a backstabber, and Quincy's the one that I had go and pull the records on Bayardo at the Harris County morgue to show that Bayardo was never a Harris County medical examiner, ever. And yet he's never turned it over to the defense. Because if Bayardo committed perjury and credentialing himself, which he did for 30 years on thousands of homicide cases, and he was committing perjury all the time, You think that might have been relevant when I brought Quincy in 2014 and had him do this?
Mm.
And to this
Did you
day.
say one time
So
that- did you
anyway,
say one time
beyond
that-
that, let's just
I have
let
a
that go.
question.
How did he handle the, the cross on Volek or the questioning on Volek, the direct?
I mean, it was fine as far as I could tell. So, and it was really interesting when she started talking because he asked her what insurance agency she works with. So I wrote it down. She said it a couple of times, but I don't know what this stands for, and I haven't had a chance to look. So it is SBJST. I'm pretty sure is what she was saying. And in 1996, she works for him now, and she worked for him in 96. She had a break in between. So apparently, it's like it's like a fraternal, family-oriented insurance
company
type
that she.
company.
Yeah,
Mm.
right.
And they have lodges, like they all have lodges, and they have ways like where the members socialize and do all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like a lodge. I just haven't looked up what it stands for.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, it's not relevant because she didn't. I mean, the relevance is Jimmy was overbearing and threatening. He was always threatening to kill her.
okay, well, let me finish what I was saying.
Okay, go ahead.
So in her role within that organization was actually how she knew Jimmy, was because Jimmy would do security at the dances that she would have to take turns kind of facilitating and being in charge of. So on one of the times that she was there in her role as an officer in that, in the lodge,
Organization. Mm-hmm.
she was in charge of the dance. So, she knew him through that. So I was always under the impression that she was an insurance agent that he took Stacey to, and that's not the case.
Right. See, they didn't take an insurance policy out. He didn't, between.
Are you sure?
So wait,
yeah.
hold up. So this
But she
vehicle
said they did.
insurance.
Not vehicle, life insurance.
Yeah. Yeah, this is life insurance. Yeah. She said they took out a policy.
She said that she submitted the application in November of 1995, and she got confirmation that it had been received at the home office.
Okay, now that's going to be So what did Tanner do on Cross on that? She said that they did take out a policy.
Yes. So on Cross, let me get over here. You know what? I couldn't really figure out what she did on Cross, to be honest with you, because she really just kind of tried to clarify, like it was a lodge in Round Rock, and she talked about, like, was he ever there another time? And she said, yeah, she saw him at other times, and she wasn't sure, like, he was there doing security with her only a couple of times, and it was actually at that place, like at the dance, that she, when she met Stacey, I think it was the second time, she asked her about life insurance, and Stacey was like, yeah. So that's when she was filling it out. And she asked, like, I don't know why I need this because I'm young. And he said, if you ever cheat on me, then I'll kill you, and they'll never know it was me that did it.
Right.
And so
that right there. That's where that came from. Okay.
Okay. Now I filed a records request here, this year for, all the insurance policies that Stacey had. And the only one that she had that paid out according to the DPS was her insurance policy at HEB.
Really?
Just been that's according to the state, yes. But I already have confirmation from the Attorney General's office that Tanner has stashed boatloads of documents in her office. Her and Mitzi Wolf have for 20 years. In this case, that's where all the witness statements, that disappeared and lab reports there. That's where they are. And I gave this to the Innocence Project when I set her up. I filed a public records request September of 2020, asking for the list of, the documents that Tanner and Mitzi Wolf had moved from the case to their AG's office. Tanner and Wolf acknowledged it by filing an exception with the Attorney General's Public Records Division, claiming that the release of the records would interfere with their ability to prosecute the appeal. The Attorney General's Records Division said that based on that exception, that they could withhold the records. And then the next paragraph said, however, if you've released these records to the opposing party, that means the defense, then they could not withhold them from me under this exception. They'd have to give them to me. So I waited 3-4 months, and they didn't give them to me, and then I forwarded this to the Innocence Project, that they should have immediately issued subpoenas for all of these records. Now, they could be planning on doing that in a habeas that they're going to file immediately after this one is over, that include these new witness statements that just came out.
We'll see.
If
it has to go that far.
Again, but this is the ignorance of the Innocence Project, because how many times has the Innocence Project thrown a habeas hearing? 2017, Bryce did a crap-ass job, didn't know what he was doing, didn't ask Curtis Davis, did you drive Jimmy Fennell back to Giddings after you took off work? Now Curtis Davis is dead, so he never can do that.
Right.
Did he question Curtis Davis on when Curtis Davis told CNN that when he came to work Tuesday morning, the morning Stacey went missing, that Jimmy Fennell's in the break room. And then Curtis Davis goes, what is he doing here? He doesn't work here anymore.
And he didn't question him about why he was there.
Yeah, right. Hey, Curtis, why are you there?
Right. He's supposed to be working the night.
You're not scheduled to work the morning shift. You're working the 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. shift like you did the night before. So what are you doing there?
Right. So, but this speaks to how the Innocence Project has defended Rodney to this point.
Haphazardly.
Right. So as Heather, as you have seen them in action today, how are you feeling about? It's just day one, yeah, we get it. But how are you feeling after day one with the representation?
I have to say the attorney that did the direct on Dr. Baker, I thought she was phenomenal. She was prepared. She was sharp. Like when Lisa Tanner cross-examined him, and then she went back on redirect, she undid everything that Lisa Tanner had.
See, what you're saying is the way this hearing was handled, because you saw how the one Bryce handled, but this one was much more professional, much smoother, all the way around. That Tanner didn't have her, didn't get her way. In fact, that she was shut down almost every angle she pulled.
She was flustered.
That's what I like.
You could tell she was flustered.
Okay, now let me.
The other thing I was going to say is one thing that I noticed, and I even made myself a note in here, is like I put Lisa Tanner is disorganized. Is that typical? And not only that, when she talks to people and asks them questions, she is like super dismissive and like has a real unprofessional tone. And Dr. Baker like kind of kept, like she would use, I don't know, she said something like big old whatever. And he said, I'm not sure what big old means. Or she would ask something that wasn't very specific. And he would say, that's very ambiguous. Can you I need to know exactly what it is you're trying to ask me.
Right. And see, that makes sense, because Tanner has always manipulated. See, in all of her cases, like in Reed's trial, Tanner was forcing everybody to dance to her tune. She was making them commit perjury. She was tampering with all the records and the evidence. I mean, when you are the director of an orchestra, you get your way.
Mhm.
But
Okay, so what
Yeah.
has
being a
changed
director
though?
of an orchestra and going to a picnic, with a bunch of hillbilly, instrument players, well, an orchestra's not going to get his way, and
So what?
trying to lead a disorganized
So
band, and that's what she walked into.
so is it that the defense has changed because it's new players on the defense now that it's a little bit different? Is it that Rodney has become more informed and has been
Well, we don't know
demanding
whether
more
Rodney's informed yet until
of his
we know whether.
attorneys? You know, I, I,
I'm not really sure. There's something to be said about the demeanor that someone presents themselves with.
Oh,
right.
absolutely.
And I will say that, like Andrew McCrae, his demeanor,
Mhm.
because he was very alpha male today. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Like it was like, I'm in charge. I'm assertive. I know where I'm taking this team. I know what it is that I'm doing. And he came across like that. And it was it was really refreshing, because Bryce always kind of seemed a little bit bumbling
Mm.
and unsure, and never took a very aggressive tone or anything
And see,
like that.
and Andrew McRae was his wingman, but Bryce was lead attorney, so Andrew McRae just had to sit on his hands.
Uh-huh. And he should have been lead.
Well,
Yeah.
it's different now.
Now, here's one of the things that's different. The Innocence Project, Barry Scheck's Innocence Project, ass is on the line here. That's one difference.
Mm.
See, Bryce so screwed this stuff up that the whole Innocence Project is in jeopardy. Their reputation is in jeopardy.
Okay.
That's one. Because you've got the national media has finally recognized Rodney Reed with Dr. Phil, Oprah, Beyonce, Kim Kardashian.
Mm-hmm.
See, some big names, some money people have taken notice.
Right.
And you can't just slide this case to execution that Bryce was trying to do. Also, by me sending these documents to all on this defense team, they know what I'm doing. They know that if you guys screw this up, you'll be facing state bar grievances.
Mm.
And see, just to give so that your listeners understand, the retired judge that's on the bench, Langley, through his whole career, he was a criminal judge. Under the Texas government code, only a retired judge who has presided over criminal courts could bench these hearings.
Mm-hmm.
No judge who sat on a civil bench under the Texas government code, Chapter 74, could be assigned to preside over this case as a criminal case. And yet, all of Rodney's attorneys are civil attorneys. Yeah.
Mm.
You see a problem?
Yeah.
And see, knowing criminal law. And here's the problem. Never having prosecuted criminal law and knowing what your medical examiner, to focus your medical examiner, you have a bunch of Monday morning Innocence Project attorneys for Rodney. And when I say Monday morning, everybody knows who works that Monday mornings are the least productive, days of the week. You come in, you hit the donuts, the coffee.
And you recover from the weekend.
Almost all day to get fired up for another week. And that's what these attorneys are. And so they didn't, when you are running a criminal defense, you learn a long time in advance that the experts you bring in are only as good as the information you put before them.
And
Go ahead.
The judge was mentioned, and a comment was placed here. Sorry to interrupt you, by the way.
No, go ahead.
Asking the demeanor of the judge, Heather.
So he was very, like, he didn't say anything rash. I have seen judges before that when there's an objection,
Mm-hmm.
that they they automatically say something, and he would pause even when it was something that he knew he was going to overrule, like when they kept objecting about putting documents in the record. He paused, and so he gives the appearance that he's putting thought into it and that he's fair. We were all really surprised, like the people that were in the gallery there, when he was so consistent about putting affidavits in and putting all the paperwork in and all the reports in. Even so the PowerPoint that Dr. Baker used,
Yes.
when they went to put it into evidence, of course, the other team objected, and they're like, he doesn't need that because we just go by the testimony. We're using his testimony and blah, 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 blah. And so he looked at what she had handed him, and he said, actually, my only question is, or my only concern with this is the copy that you gave me that's going to go into the record is black and white. Do you have a color copy of this?
Mm.
And she said, I do. It's right here. And he said, let's put that one in. That's what needs to go to the Court of Criminal Appeals, the color copy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and see, he warned you of this back in January of 2000.
Mm-hmm.
When he said, when they were trying to schedule, a 2-week period for this,
Yeah.
and he says, well, look, the attorney said, well, we can break it up, and he says, no, you can't either. I'm getting old. I can't follow it. It's got to be all together. You can't break it up. So he's already acknowledging that his mental focus is
shot.
limited.
Yeah.
And
he stayed awake all day.
Huh?
Yeah, but
stayed
it's day
awake
one.
all day.
It's day one.
Nobody
though.
had to kick his chair like the sleeping attorney did. Okay.
Yeah, but it's day one.
Okay.
We
Now-
still have
Now
13
let me
more.
point let me point something else out because this is critical. The testimony so far of Andrew Baker, no matter how good it was and everything, won't mean a damn thing to the Court of Criminal Appeals.
Right.
And you know why?
Why is that?
Because they haven't gone after Bayardo first. I mean, yet. If
Well,
they
there's
don't,
still time.
if they don't, huh?
It's still
Yes,
time.
they have time.
Like I'm saying, it's
But
day
if
one.
they don't, if they don't bring in Bayardo, Bayardo's a judge under the rulings of under the statute,
Mm-hmm.
and the Court of Criminal Appeals will never override a medical examiner's findings, and no matter how good the forensic pathologist is, if you do not go after the medical examiner. Now, here's what I gave them this week: the Innocence Project, McRae, and all of them, except Quincy, is Bayardo's contract with Travis County that went into effect August of 1992. Starting in August 1992, Bayardo did all autopsies for JP counties like Bastrop, or just dealing just with Bastrop. Starting the first week of August 1992, Bayardo did all of the autopsies for Bastrop County, not as the Travis County medical examiner, chief medical examiner, or deputy. He did the autopsies as a private physician under an autopsy services contract with Travis County for $300. So when Bayardo did Stacey's autopsy, he was paid $300 out of the autopsy bill that Travis County submitted.
Mm.
Now, this is a criminal fraud because in 1991-92, Travis County discovered that Bayardo was doing these autopsies, and when they researched the law, they realized that JP, a justice of the peace, cannot order a medical examiner to do an autopsy. It's illegal because they're both judges, and they both have limited jurisdiction to the county that they serve. And the statute does not allow a medical examiner to perform an autopsy on somebody who dies in another county. And they cannot do it through an interlocal autopsy agreement. The AG's ruled on that as well. And that was John Cornyn that ruled on that. So the AG first ruled in 1969 that a justice of the peace cannot send the body out of county for an autopsy, and if they do, they can't pay for it because the JP has no authority to do it. That the statute, the Code of Criminal Procedure, requires the inquest that JPs are under law statutorily required to do, must be done in the county of the death, and the autopsy is merely a discretionary tool of the inquest. That holds true for medical examiners. Medical examiners are required by statute to conduct inquests in all unattended deaths by physicians, and that they can perform autopsies only as part of that inquest. If they perform an autopsy and do not conduct the inquest and write the inquest report, the autopsies are void. They may not be used in a criminal court of law against the defendant. So when Ann Warnicki, the JP in Bastrop County, ordered the Travis County Medical Examiner's Office to perform the autopsy, the order was void the day she signed it. And Bayardo didn't do the autopsy as a Travis County Medical Examiner. He did it as a private physician for profit. The Texas Constitution forbids salaried county appointed officials from being paid any monies over their salary for their statutory duties. So if Bayardo could perform an autopsy for Bastrop County, he could not do it for money. That any monies made would go into the treasury of the Travis County Commissioner's Court.
Right. So, here it is. A comment here. I don't see anybody doing anything about that stuff realistically. It seems the whole system is treading water in the deep end, plus no one cares.
You're right. Nobody has done anything yet.
Right.
But don't underestimate me, because this is where it comes to an end.
Okay.
I've been warning about this all across the state of Texas, but it's coming to an end in the next 2 weeks. You're going to see it if these numbnuts that represent Rodney, if they drop the ball, they will have hell to pay, because I'm already loaded for bear. But I've given them the contract. That means, and see what this scheme was. I shut this scheme down back in 2006 with Travis County. I threatened to take them to court over it. I stopped it.
All right.
So
the
Travis
question
County,
is.
Sorry.
The question is no. As it relates to the hearing, as it presents itself, no. This is day one.
The hearing has an opening for this. The hearing. See, the hearing has to do with perjury too. The withholding of evidence and the suborning of perjury. Well, you see, Bayardo was proffered by Lisa Tanner as a witness for the state, as an expert for the state.
Yeah.
She didn't credential him, which is unheard of, because it tells you that she already knew that he's a fraud, that he never was a Travis County medical examiner. She knows that. So she asked him, he was asked if he had any financial incentive in this autopsy. He said no, that there was no financial incentive. Well, that was a lie. That
because
he was being paid $300.
Right.
Right, and he did it on his county time when he's making his salary, so he's double dipping. He's doing it on his county time that he's being paid, and he's doing it as a private contracted vendor. Now, when Travis County set up this scheme in '92, they didn't want the JP counties to know about it. So what they did is that this contract is a quiet contract with Bayardo. And so Bayardo does the autopsy. He signs the autopsy report using the title of Chief Medical Examiner. He has the autopsy report written on Travis County Medical Examiner form and letterhead. The Travis County Medical Examiner's office bills the Bastrop County for the autopsy.
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as the money gets into the auditor's hands, the auditor cuts Bayardo a $300 check as a private physician for doing the autopsy. And Bastrop or none of the other 40 surrounding counties have a clue that this is going on. So when Bayardo credentials himself as the Travis County Chief Medical Examiner did this autopsy, it's aggravated perjury.
So unless Rodney's defense team goes after Bayardo in this respect, then Andrew
Baker's testimony gets thrown out just like Bodden's did.
Okay, cool. That's all I want to establish.
So let me put it out to your listeners. If the Innocence Project does this,
yes,
then they can all expect a state bar grievance in every state that they have a law license for incompetence, for civil attorneys handling a capital murder death penalty case when none of them are criminal attorneys,
mm-hmm.
when even a civil judge wouldn't be allowed to bench a criminal case of any sort. And yet you have these civil attorneys who don't understand what they're doing. They don't practice this area of law, and they are defrauding the civil rights of the defendant. They're ineffective assistance of counsel only to ingratiate themselves into this greater scheme of the Innocence Project. And
okay,
this is a fatal flaw of the Innocence Project being civil attorneys. This is why none of the attorneys representing Rodney could answer any of the questions for 2020 in their 2-hour special, because when the producers questioned Rodney's own attorneys and asked him, well, the Lisa Tanner says this and they file this. Well, we can't comment on that because that's criminal law and we're civil law attorneys.
Okay.
This is what the producers told me over and over and over again, and this is why they brought me in to do the narration, is because the attorneys representing Rodney couldn't discuss with them criminal law because they're civil law attorneys. And these guys are running his hearing right now.
Well, and this is the thing.
There was an attorney that they interviewed that represented Rodney in that Wichita Falls case, and they didn't even show it or mention it in the 2020 episode.
So that's Bob Estrada. He's a good friend of mine.
So here's what I'm saying at this point, because this is day one, and this is why I asked Heather how she feels about what the defense is, how the defense has presented on day one, and there's a long way to go yet.
But you see, Kevin, yeah. Yes, they were smooth as silk compared to the sow's ear that Bryce was in 2017. But the problem still exists, that they're walking down the same road that Bryce went, that they're putting Dr. Bodden is the foremost medical examiner in the country, but his testimony freestanding without going after Bayardo was fatally flawed.
This is what I'm saying. There's still time. They can still go after.
Right. You know how much time there is, Kevin?
How much?
There are 4 more days.
And then the
defense puts on their case first to this Friday.
Right.
After this Friday, it's over. If they don't go after Bayardo, and they don't have anybody set up to do that.
Mm-hmm.
In the next 4 days. And I mean, their witness list doesn't include anybody. Now, I guess they could do it through Tanner. When they put Tanner on the stand,
Yeah.
they could do it. They could ask her, you know, as the prosecutor, you called Roberto Vallarta as a state's witness. Did you look into his background? Did you verify his credentials?
Okay, so we have put this out there a few times. We have put this out there a few times. So we're gonna go with the hope and the prayer that
right.
that is what they go. Plus, we have there are people that are tuned in that get to speak with Rodney. I don't know if Rodney got to tune in at all tonight, but there are people that get to speak with Rodney that have tuned in. And so as a result of that, just putting it out there that is important that they go after Bayardo.
Right, that's why I'm showing my hand.
Yeah,
I'm showing my hand so that I don't have to play it.
Right.
But if Barry Scheck's bunch want to gamble with me, you'll lose.
Okay, so let's just put that.
If you don't represent him, be prepared.
Let's put that out there. And if they question what it is that you'll do, then we can address that. But let's just put that out there and leave it there.
That's what I was doing. Is putting it out there that if they don't go after Bayardo, Andrew Baker's testimony, no matter how smooth, how slick, PowerPoint, all of it, is moot, because the Court of Criminal Appeals knows that medical examiners are judges, and you cannot overturn a judge's statutory duties unless you can show that the judge was without authority, or was incompetent, or was corrupt. If you don't do that, none of the testimonies of medical examiners, no matter how prominent, can override the testimony of a medical examiner. And see, the reason I know this is I learned over 20 years. I watched other cases, and I watched how criminal defense attorneys defended their clients when they had a problem medical examiner, and it wasn't until defense attorneys actually got into the competence of the medical examiner and the media got on board that the medical examiner was incompetent or corrupt. Once that happened, the Court of Criminal Appeals acted with due haste and overturned the convictions. But when that now there's a trick here.
Wait.
Before you do the trick, hold on.
Hold up.
Before you do the trick, I just want to let you guys know, I gotta go.
Yeah.
I knew it was getting late.
Yeah.
I will talk to y'all later.
Thank you very much,
Heather.
Heather.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
See, so in the first case, where it was a medical examiner from Houston in a baby death case, and the incompetency came out. It was a deputy medical examiner. When that happened, and the chief medical examiner and the deputy chief reviewed the deputy medical examiner's work and declared it incompetent, the Court of Criminal Appeals immediately struck the conviction. Now, that same deputy medical examiner had done another baby death. And the defense attorney there figured, the court has already ruled, and so I don't really have to do anything but just to file the appeal, and the court will strike it. Yeah, they got a big surprise. Because the second defense attorney didn't also build his record on the medical examiner's that autopsy being incompetent, being that the deputy medical examiner did it as a judge, bam, the court ruled with the medical examiner and with the state.
Was that Melissa's
case?
And
the defendant had to stay in prison another 6 years until the defense attorney got their shit together and refiled and then went after the medical examiner directly, and then the conviction was overturned.
So
That's exactly what we're going on here.
I was asking, was that Melissa's case that you were talking about?
This was Robbins was the second guy. The medical examiner's name was Patricia Moore, out of Houston.
I was thinking was if it was Melissa's case, the Hispanic lady that's on death row for killing her child.
No. These were people that were sentenced to life in these cases. These were shaken baby cases, and these were in the 1998 to 2008, 9, 10 time frame.
Okay.
Oh.
So,
but the bottom line is that you see each ruling of a medical examiner is freestanding, and you can't, if the courts rule against a medical examiner in one place, like the Court of Criminal Appeals ruled against Bayardo in the Michael Morton case, and it was the same time of death, the BS time of death, and everything. But you see, it wasn't handled correctly. In Michael Morton's case, they went after Bayardo of his incompetence.
So, and this is what we're saying. No, this is what we're saying. No, where it is important that, like I said earlier, since we had listeners that that could get in touch with Rodney, it was important that at least he got word so that he can instruct his attorneys that this is what we need to do.
Right. Rodney has to know what's going on. And
this is documented that this is what you're saying, and there is precedence where this has worked.
Yes. And he saw it because what did the Court of Criminal Appeals rule in that 2017 hearing? They ruled that Michael Bodden and the other medical examiner's affidavits and Bodden's testimony was that was that they were reviewing Bayardo's autopsy report, which was not all-encompassing, and they were using low-quality pictures because there are no high-quality autopsy pictures in Stacey's case. Everything is low quality when it comes to a picture. And the Innocence Project hadn't asked why. If they ever asked why, they would see that the state tampered with the pictures to make them low quality in order to hinder the defense. But you got civil attorneys that don't believe that the state will do that. Any criminal defense attorney that's been around for about 10 years realizes, my God, the state prosecutors are the most corrupt people in the world. They don't care if you are innocent or guilty, or if the guilty person gets away. It's a game of just winning. So what the Court of Criminal Appeals ruled is that Bayardo was still best evidence because Bayardo got to see the body of Stacey. He did the autopsy. He saw everything in clear vision, and it's his autopsy report, and the autopsy report can't possibly have everything in it he saw. So Bodden, without explaining why Bayardo's report is defective or should be stricken, and that Bodden or Spence or Riddick's opinion should be superior to Bayardo's, without any showing of Bayardo's incompetence, Bayardo always wins, and that's what they ruled. That's why it was thrown out. Why Bodden's testimony, all of it, was thrown out. Because the Innocence Project didn't go after Bayardo. And, man, I was beating up on Quincy. Quincy was sitting at that defense table. I'm beating up on Quincy, telling him, for months that you have to go after Bayardo before that hearing. And they refused to do it.
Well, let's see now where they go and what happens. I'm going to wrap this up.
I'm trying to make sure that Rodney receives the records that I give to his prosecution team. Look, I want the prosecution team to do I want them to do what's right. Damn it, listen and read the documents and read the statutes and understand the
The
statutes.
defense team.
The defense team.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And see, so I sent them the briefs. I sent them the briefs that the Travis County attorney filed in 2008, where they argued that the Travis County medical examiner is a judge when they perform autopsies and inquests. Now, and I put in this stuff to Andrew McRae and Poocher and all of these others except Quincy, because I had talked to Quincy about it for more than, God, I've known Quincy for almost 20 years, and put it in there that they're judges. You have to know this. 99% of all defense attorneys don't know that a medical examiner is a judge. They're a judicial officer. And there are and the courts will not overturn their findings without some showing on the part of the defense that the medical examiner was incompetent, what he did was illegal, was out of jurisdiction, or was fraud, or was a criminal act. Well, I gave them the contract. I gave them the pay stuff. I gave them autopsy reports. So they have it all. Now let's see if they do it.
Okay. Well, that's what I'm saying. You have provided them with the information that is necessary. So all we can do is just wait to see where they go with it and how they use it.
I mean, they were smoother. There's no doubt they were smoother than Bryce was on their first day.
Yeah, so
but smooth won't get you anywhere in Texas.
Here's the thing, though. Consistency is what we're looking for, and let's encourage them to have this consistency, to go with this kind of gusto, to keep this level up, and even to get better as the remainder of this week goes on and next week. So we all being well, we'll meet again next Monday. Thank you
too much
again.
Of a gentleman at it.
Yeah, well, there is something scheduled for next week.
You're right. I just wanted to put out so everybody knows, and if any of the Innocence Project friends are listening,
yeah,
tap somebody on the shoulder and go, "Are you guys paying attention?" Now, if they're paying attention, hey, I got no problem, because I got a lot of crap on my desk, more than Rodney's case.
Right. So
and Rodney really needs to take an interest in his own case and start asking his own team to start including him in the stuff.
Good night,
He's
Joy.
a pretty sharp guy.
Thank you for hanging out with us.
So anyway, yeah, we need to go. I'm sorry to drag you out too late, Kevin.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Thank you, David.
You want to do the sign off?
Oh yeah, I got this.
All right.
Thank you much. Truly appreciate
talking to you, Dave.
each and every one of you. Josie, thank you very much for hanging out and chiming in. Heather, you already left us. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the insight into. Oh, geez, there was something I wanted to ask Heather and I forgot. I wanted to ask her how it worked out with her and the other side and the rest of the family, and I got sidetracked. But I'll speak with her.
I'd kind of asked her about that, and she hadn't heard back from all of this is moving real fast.
No. Just her interaction with her and the rest of the family at the courthouse today.
Oh, you're talking about Reed's family?
No. Just her interaction with her family, with the rest of the staff.
Oh, there's not been a lot. There hadn't been any time for her with her family yet. We talked about that earlier.
Okay. So, thank you all. The podcast will be up tomorrow. You can catch this in its entirety if you missed some pieces of it or you just want to listen to it again. The Night Shift with DJ Kevin Stew. It's on podcast wherever you listen to your podcasts, or you can check out the YouTube of the same name, The Night Shift with DJ Kevin Stew. Truly appreciate of each and every one of you. Thank you very much. We went overtime, way overtime. But
just want to say good night to the hammer, Josie.
I'm good.
Y'all
I'm
take
mixed
care.
with vampires, so I'm good.
Y'all take care. Much love to you. Remember, this is where you come to have acceptance through enlightenment. My job here is not to give you all the answers. My job is to stimulate your appetite, not satisfy your hunger. The information you get, you can go and search for some more. All right. So let's do this. Let's get Rodney home. Let's give him the support that he needs. Everywhere that you can go, find a Rodney Reed. You have advocates for Rodney Reed. You have Rodney Reed, innocent on death row. There are support groups for Rodney. Let's get involved. Post it on your social media pages. Do whatever you can. Just get the word out there. Give Rodney all the support that you can because he's an innocent man.
I want to also add, don't forget, in September we got the Julius Jones thing coming up.
Yeah,
so.
and we support Julius Jones also. So we're not sleeping on that one either. Don't get it twisted. David, Josie, thank you guys. Y'all take care. We're gonna be bouncing out of here.
All right. Very good. Thank you much.
All
Y'all have
right.
a good evening.
Have a good night. As I wrap this all up, leave you with a little bit of this track called Lost in Illusion, courtesy of Nikki Blaze. Want to say thank you to my segment sponsors. I didn't thank them before. Pulse Media Group and being in a moment is priceless. For innovative streaming and recording solutions, give them a call, 754-999-6020. You can check them out online, pulseemg.com. They do everything you see here on kevinstew.com and more. You have a church service, a funeral, a wedding, graduation. Give them a call if you want to stream it live on a secure platform. I want to say thank you to Althea and her Healing Heavenly Hands. Althea is a licensed massage therapist operating out of Broad County, North Miami-Dade, and South Palm Beach counties. She comes to you with her table, her oils, and her Healing Heavenly Hands with over 20 years of experience. Give her a call, 954-655-9000. That's 954-655-9000. Or email her at thealater@att.net. I want to say thanks to Reggae Global Entertainment. Reggae Global Entertainment will take care of all your needs. Social media, entertainment, tour management, bookings, promotions, marketing and promotion, and so much more. Give them a call, 954-804-8199. Or check them out online, reggaeglobalentertainment.com. And a special thanks to McNeil Trucking. Call them for your moving and trucking needs. With McNeil Trucking, you're in good hands. 954-406-9740. That's 954-406-9740. Thank you, each and every one. Until next time, y'all take care. I'm back here tomorrow. Healthy love, 10 p.m. Eastern. Good morning, good afternoon, good day to you wherever you are in the world. From right here in South Florida, I bid you a good night.
I see them lost, oh, lost in delusion. Yeah, my people, you lost, oh. I see them lost, oh yes, I see them lost in illusion. I see them love, oh yes, I see them lost in delusion, and now they reside in a state of confusion. I see.
Greetings and salutations, one and all. You're invited to tune in to the night shift with DJ Kevin Stew. It airs on Mondays with Community and Finance, Tuesdays with Healthy Love, and Wednesdays with Real Talk from 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time. Come spend some time interacting in the stew pot where we keep things bubbling and wind down in musical therapy. The Night Shift with DJ Kevin Stew is on kevinstew.com, where you're encouraged to have acceptance through enlightenment.